Imagine a valley tucked away in the western highlands of Honduras, a place where time seems to hold its breath. Here, as the first rays of morning light pierce through a blanket of mist, the world awakens not to the rush of modern life, but to the gentle symphony of the rainforest. The air is cool and damp, carrying the scent of wet earth and blooming orchids. The only sounds are the distant calls of howler monkeys, the melodic chirping of unseen birds, and the soft rustle of leaves as a gentle breeze whispers through the canopy. This is the Copán Valley, and scattered across its floor, like sleeping giants, are the silent remnants of a lost world. Ancient stones, carved with stories we are only just beginning to understand, stand watch as they have for over 1,000 years. Moss and vines cling to their weathered surfaces, a testament to the jungle's patient embrace. For centuries, this entire city lay hidden, swallowed by the relentless green of the forest, its memory fading into myth and legend. Yet this was no ordinary settlement. This was Copan, one of the most splendid and artistically advanced cities of the great Maya civilization. It was a royal capital, a hub of science, art, and ceremony that flourished for hundreds of years. At its peak, this valley was a bustling metropolis, home to tens of thousands of people. Its plazas would have been filled with the sounds of commerce, its temples echoing with chants and rituals, and its stairways climbed by kings adorned in jade and brilliant feathers. The story of Copan is a tale of incredible achievement and sudden collapse. It's a puzzle written in stone, a mystery that archaeologists have been piecing together, glyph by glyph, for more than a century. How could such a vibrant and powerful city simply vanish? What secrets do these silent monuments hold about the people who built them, their beliefs, their triumphs, and their ultimate fate? Join us as we step back in time, to walk the sacred causeways and stand in the shadow of pyramids that rival those of ancient Egypt in their complexity. We will explore the Great Plaza, a vast open-air gallery of stone stelae, each one a portrait of a powerful ruler, their life stories intricately carved for all eternity. These are not just statues. They are historical documents, frozen moments captured by master sculptors at the height of their craft. The detail is staggering, from the delicate patterns on their clothing to the expressive faces that seem ready to speak. We will then dare to climb the Hieroglyphic Stairway, a monumental structure containing the longest known Maya text in the world. Its 63 steps are covered in over 2,000 individual glyphs, narrating the complete dynastic history of the Copan kings. It is a stone manuscript, a royal lineage that was tragically shattered and is now being painstakingly reconstructed by experts. Each block is a piece of the puzzle, and every deciphered glyph brings us closer to the heart of this ancient kingdom. Beyond the grand public spaces, we'll venture into the residential areas, the courtyards and homes where daily life unfolded. Here, we can imagine the artisans at work, the children playing, and the families gathering. We'll even explore the tunnels that archaeologists have dug deep beneath the city, revealing older temples layered one on top of the other, like a giant architectural time capsule. These dark, narrow passages lead us to the tombs of kings, including the legendary founder of the dynasty Ka-Inichiaks-Kuk-Mo, the sun-eyed resplendent Quetzalcoatl. We'll meet the vibrant scarlet macaws that soar freely through the ruins, living symbols of the sun and sacred birds to the ancient Maya. Their brilliant colors against the gray stone are a living link to the city's glorious past. The connection between the natural world and the spiritual realm was fundamental to the Maya, and here in Copan, that connection feels incredibly alive. The story of Copan is not just about its magnificent past, but also about its rediscovery and the ongoing quest to understand its secrets. It's a story of exploration, of decipherment, and of the enduring power of human culture. Why did the Maya of Copan invest so much in art and history? What can their story teach us about the cycles of civilization, the relationship between humanity and the environment, and the fragility of even the greatest societies? This is more than just a tour of ancient ruins. It's a journey into the soul of the Maya world, a quiet valley where the stones still speak, if we only take the time to listen. We'll uncover the rise of a dynasty, the golden age of a jungle metropolis, and the enigmatic silence that followed. The answers lie hidden in the carvings, buried beneath the earth, and whispered on the forest wind. Are you ready to discover the lost city of Copan? Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. If you're fascinated by ancient history and lost civilizations, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure. Let us know in the comments which part of Copan's story intrigues you the most. Until next time, keep exploring. Welcome back to our journey through the ancient world of the Maya. In our last chapter, we set the stage. Today, we dive deep into the lifeblood of a civilization, the Copan River. Imagine this valley thousands of years ago. It wasn't the manicured landscape we see today. It was a wild, untamed frontier. So why here? Why did the early Maya choose this specific spot to build a dynasty that would last for centuries? The answer flows right through the heart of the valley, the river. Every great civilization has a relationship with water. For the Egyptians, it was the Nile. For the Mesopotamians, the Tigris and Euphrates. For the Maya of Copan, it was this winding, vital river. This wasn't just a source of drinking water. It was the architect of their entire world. The river's journey begins high in the surrounding mountains. Over millennia, it carried rich, volcanic soil and sediment down into the lowlands. This annual process, a gift from nature, created an incredibly fertile alluvial plain. Think of it as a natural fertilizer delivery system. This rich soil was the foundation for their most important crop, maize. Maize or corn was more than just food for the Maya. It was sacred. It was intertwined with their creation stories, their cosmology, and their daily rituals. The Popol Vuh, their sacred text, tells of God's creating humanity from maize dough. To the Maya, they were literally people of the corn. And the Copán Valley, thanks to its river, was a paradise for growing it. The consistent water supply meant they could cultivate maize with remarkable success. This wasn't dry slash-and-burn farming that exhausted the soil quickly. This was sustainable, intensive agriculture. The fertile riverbanks allowed for multiple harvests a year, creating a food surplus. And a food surplus is the key that unlocks civilization. When you don't have to spend every waking moment searching for food, you have time. Time to think, to build, to create. This agricultural abundance, powered by the river, allowed the population of Copan to grow. Villages turned into towns, and eventually, a powerful city-state emerged. The surplus supported not just farmers but also priests, astronomers, artists, and warriors. It funded the construction of the incredible temples and monuments we see today. The first settlements naturally clung to the river's edge. Being close to the water meant easy access for drinking, cooking, and bathing. It also made irrigating their fields a much simpler task. If you were to map the earliest structures found in Copan, you'd see they form a clear pattern following the curves of the river. It was their main street, their lifeline. The river dictated where people lived, worked, and worshipped. But the river's influence didn't stop at the valley's edge. It was also a highway. While not a massive, navigable river for large vessels, it served as a crucial artery for trade and communication. Canoes could transport goods up and down the valley, connecting different settlements and facilitating the movement of resources. Think about moving heavy stones for construction or large quantities of maize for trade. Doing that over land is difficult. Doing it on water is efficient. This local network connected Copan to a much wider world. The Copan River flows into the larger Motagua River, which in turn empties into the Caribbean Sea. This gave the rulers of Copan a direct route to the coast and the vast Mesoamerican trade network. Precious goods like jade, obsidian, and marine shells traveled along these river highways, finding their way to the artisans and elites of Copan. Jade, a stone more valuable than gold to the Maya, likely arrived via this river route from sources hundreds of kilometers away in the Motagua Valley. Obsidian, the razor-sharp volcanic glass used for tools and weapons, was imported from the highlands of Guatemala. These exotic materials weren't just luxuries. They were symbols of power and divine connection. The ability to acquire and control the trade of these goods solidified the king's authority. And it was all made possible by the riverine network. So you see, the environment wasn't just a backdrop for the Maya of Copan, it was an active participant in their story. The river shaped their economy, their social structure, and even their political power. The fertile soil allowed for a population boom. The water access dictated settlement patterns. And the river's connection to the wider world fueled their wealth and influence. The relationship was symbiotic. The Maya harnessed the river's gifts, but they also understood its power. They managed the landscape, building terraces to prevent erosion and maximize farmland. They understood the seasonal cycles of rain and water flow. Their calendar, famously precise, was likely developed in part to track these agricultural and environmental rhythms. This deep connection between the natural world and cultural development is a key theme we'll keep coming back to. The story of Copan is a powerful reminder that human history is inseparable from environmental history. The pyramids of stone stand on a foundation of fertile soil, brought to them by a river that guided their destiny. As we stand here today, listening to the gentle flow of the water, it's humbling to think of the generations of people who depended on this very river. It watered their crops, carried their canoes, and connected them to a world of gods and distant kingdoms. It truly was the river that guided a civilization. In our next chapter, we'll start to look at the people themselves. Who were the first kings of Copan? How did they establish their divine right to rule? The story gets even more fascinating as we begin to decipher the stone carvings they left behind. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of the Copan River. If you're enjoying this journey into the past, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what's coming next. We have so much more to uncover together. See you in the next chapter. Welcome back to our journey through Maya history. In this chapter, we're turning the clock back about 2,000 years to witness the very first footsteps of the Maya in this region. Imagine a landscape untouched by grand pyramids and bustling cities. What we see instead are small, nomadic groups of hunter-gatherers. These were the pioneers, the trailblazers who first recognized the potential of this land. They didn't arrive with grand plans for an empire. They came in search of sustenance, following the rhythm of the seasons and the migration of animals. Their lives were intimately connected to the forest, the rivers, and the wildlife. They were masters of survival, their knowledge of the natural world passed down through generations. These early people lived a life on the move. Their settlements weren't permanent stone structures but temporary camps made from wood, leaves, and other materials the forest provided. Think of small family units, moving through the dense jungle, their possessions limited to what they could carry. Their days were spent hunting game like deer and peccary, fishing in the rivers and cenotes, and gathering wild fruits, nuts, and edible plants. This was a life of constant adaptation, requiring a deep understanding of their environment. Every sound in the forest, every change in the weather, held meaning. This intimate relationship with the land was the foundation upon which the entire Maya civilization would eventually be built. It was in these humble beginnings, in the heart of the untamed jungle, that the seeds of a future society were sown. But something remarkable began to happen. Over a period of many generations, a profound transformation started to take place. These nomadic hunter-gatherers began to experiment with a new way of life. They discovered that certain wild plants could be cultivated. This discovery, simple as it may sound, was revolutionary. We're talking about the domestication of maize or corn, along with beans and squash. This trio, often called the Three Sisters, would become the cornerstone of the Maya diet and, indeed, their entire civilization. Cultivating these crops meant they no longer had to constantly roam in search of food. They could stay in one place for longer periods, tend to their fields, and harvest their own sustenance. This shift from a nomadic lifestyle to a settled one didn't happen overnight. It was a slow, gradual process spanning centuries. Families began to clear small patches of the forest for their milpas, their cornfields. They started building more durable homes, forming the first true villages. You can picture it, a collection of huts clustered around a central plaza, the smell of wood smoke in the air, the sounds of children playing, and the community working together to plant and harvest. Life became more predictable, more stable. This stability allowed for population growth. With a reliable food source, families could support more members and villages slowly expanded. It was the dawn of a new era, the transition from being wanderers in the forest to becoming masters of the land. As these villages grew, so did the complexity of their society. With the basic need for food met more reliably, people had time for other pursuits. They developed new skills and technologies. Pottery, for instance, became essential for storing grain and water. They crafted more sophisticated tools from stone and obsidian for farming and building. This period of early settlement was a time of incredible innovation. Social structures also began to evolve. Instead of small, egalitarian family groups, leadership roles likely started to emerge. Perhaps the most skilled farmer, the wisest elder, or a charismatic individual began to guide community decisions. These early leaders would have organized planting and harvesting efforts, managed food surpluses, and resolved disputes. The spiritual life of these early villagers also deepened. Their connection to the land and the cycles of nature was profound. They worshipped gods associated with the sun, the rain, and most importantly, the maize. The success of their crops was a matter of life and death, so it's no surprise that their religious beliefs were deeply intertwined with agriculture. They would have performed simple rituals and ceremonies to ensure a bountiful harvest, to appease the rain god Chak, and to give thanks for their sustenance. These early spiritual practices were the seeds from which the elaborate cosmology and complex religious ceremonies of the later classic Maya would sprout. These were not yet the grand state rituals of the future, but intimate, community-focused acts of faith and hope. Now, let us talk about the next major step in this evolution: the slow transformation of these agricultural villages into ceremonial centers. This is where things get really fascinating. As villages grew larger and more prosperous, some began to gain prominence over others. This could have been due to a variety of factors: a particularly strategic location, access to valuable resources like salt or obsidian, or the influence of a powerful lineage of leaders. These prominent villages began to attract people from surrounding areas, not just for trade, but for something more, for communal and spiritual gatherings. The central plaza, once a simple open space, started to take on greater importance. This is where we see the first signs of monumental architecture. It didn't start with towering pyramids. It began much more humbly. Perhaps the community came together to build a slightly raised platform made of earth and rubble, faced with plaster. This platform might have supported a temple or a public building made of perishable materials like wood and thatch. It wasn't about grandeur yet. It was about creating a dedicated sacred space. A place that was physically and symbolically set apart from the everyday world of homes and fields. This was a place for the community to unite, to perform rituals together, and to reinforce their shared identity and beliefs. The construction of these first public structures was a monumental undertaking for a small community. It required a level of social organization and cooperation that hadn't existed before. Leaders would have had to mobilize labor, organize the quarrying of stone and the burning of limestone to make plaster, and direct the construction. The very act of building these structures strengthened the social bonds within the community and reinforced the authority of its leaders. These early ceremonial centers became focal points on the landscape, visible symbols of the community's power and piety. They were magnets, drawing in people and ideas and fostering a sense of a larger shared Maya culture. Over time, these centers grew in complexity. More platforms were built. Plazas were paved. Simple earthen mounds evolved into more sophisticated stone-faced structures. We begin to see the first hints of the layout that would characterize later Maya cities: plazas, platforms, and pyramids aligned with astronomical events or sacred directions. This architectural development reflects a parallel development in their society and religion. The rituals became more elaborate, the pantheon of gods more defined, and the role of the priests and leaders more specialized. The ceremonial center was no longer just a village plaza. It was becoming the heart of a burgeoning political and religious entity. This entire process, from the first hunter-gatherer camps to the rise of early ceremonial centers, took centuries. It was a slow, organic growth, driven by innovation, adaptation, and a deepening spiritual connection to the world around them. What started with a few families following deer through the jungle had evolved into organized societies, capable of reshaping their landscape to create sacred spaces. They laid the physical and ideological groundwork for the spectacular achievements of the classic period. The story of these first settlers is a powerful reminder that every great civilization begins with small steps, with the courage to adapt, and with a vision for building something that will last. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe for our next chapter, where we'll explore the rise of the first great Maya cities. See you then. Welcome back to our journey through the incredible history of the Maya civilization. Today, we're diving deep into the story of a legendary figure, a man who would forever change the destiny of a city and establish a dynasty that would last for centuries. This is the story of Kanichyaxcucmo, the founder of the great Copan dynasty. Our story begins in the year 426 AD. At this time, the Maya world was a complex tapestry of powerful city-states, each vying for influence. Copan, nestled in a fertile valley in what is now modern-day Honduras, was a relatively modest center. It had been inhabited for centuries, but it lacked the political clout and monumental architecture of the great cities to the north, like Tikal or Calakmul. All of that was about to change with the arrival of a mysterious and powerful stranger. Who was this man? Kainich Yaks Kekak Mo. His name translates to sun-eyed green Quetzal macaw, a title brimming with royal and divine symbolism. For a long time, his origins were shrouded in myth. Inscriptions at Copan tell of his arrival, his accession, and his founding of a new political order. But where did he come from? For decades, scholars debated whether he was a local lord who rose to power or a foreigner who conquered the valley. The breakthrough came from a combination of archaeology and epigraphy, the study of ancient writing. Hieroglyphic texts on monuments like the famous Altar Q at Copan narrate the story. Altar Q depicts a procession of all 16 rulers of the Copan dynasty, with Kainich Yaks Kukmo at the head, passing the torch of leadership to the last king. Crucially, the text says he took the symbols of royal power not at Copan, but at a place associated with Teotihuacan, the mighty metropolis in central Mexico. This was a game-changer. It suggested that Kainich Yaks Kuk Mo wasn't just some local upstart. He was a man with connections to the most powerful city in Mesoamerica at the time. Further evidence came from examining his own remains, which were discovered deep within a pyramid at the heart of the Copan necropolis, a tomb now known as Huno. Isotope analysis of his bones and teeth revealed a fascinating life story. The chemistry of his teeth, which form in childhood, showed he grew up not in Copan, but in the Petén region, the heartland of the Maya lowlands, likely near Tikal. However, the chemistry of his bones, which remodel throughout life, confirmed he spent his final decades in Copan. So the picture becomes clearer. Kainich Yaks Kuk Mo was likely a Maya nobleman from the Petén, possibly from the Tikal area. He traveled to the great city of Teotihuacan, a journey that would have taken months through treacherous territory. There, he was indoctrinated into their political and military traditions, which were heavily influential across Mesoamerica. We see this reflected in his art style and iconography. He is often depicted wearing goggles, a hallmark of the Teotihuacan storm god, and carrying a rectangular shield, a weapon typical of Teotihuacano warriors, not the flexible shields common among the Maya. A fracture on his right forearm, which never healed properly, suggests he was a seasoned warrior who had seen combat. Armed with this powerful new identity, a blend of Maya nobility and Teotihuacano military prestige, he set out for Copan. His journey wasn't just a casual stroll, it was a strategic move. He arrived in the Copán Valley, not as a brutal conqueror, but as a unifier. He likely married a prominent local woman to cement his claim and integrate his new leadership with the existing power structure. This act of political genius laid the foundation for a stable and enduring dynasty. Upon his arrival in 426 AD, Kainich Yaks Kuk Mo immediately began a massive building program. He established what is now known as the Copan necropolis, the royal heart of the city. He constructed the first version of the ballcourt and foundational temples, setting a precedent for his successors who would build new temples directly on top of his, layer by layer, like a sacred onion. This practice created a timeline in stone, with the founder's original structures at the very core. His vision wasn't just architectural, it was political. He established a new order, one that centered power in a single royal lineage. This dynastic model, legitimized by his foreign connections and military prowess, brought unprecedented stability and prosperity to Copan. The city began to flourish, controlling trade routes for precious goods like jade and obsidian. Under his leadership, Copan was set on a path to become one of the most artistically and intellectually advanced cities of the classic Maya period. His legacy is monumental. He wasn't just the first king on a long list. He was the dynastic founder, the revered ancestor to whom all subsequent rulers looked for legitimacy. For nearly 400 years, his descendants would rule Copan, each one adding to the grandeur of the city he established. They would build magnificent stelae, temples, and the renowned Hieroglyphic Stairway, all while honoring the memory of their great founder, the sun-eyed green Quetzal macaw. The story of Kainich Yaks Kuk Mo is a powerful testament to the dynamic and interconnected world of ancient Mesoamerica. It's a tale of ambition, travel, warfare, and brilliant political maneuvering. It shows us how a single individual, by bridging cultures and forging a new identity, could establish a legacy that would echo for centuries. The ruins of Copan stand today not just as a monument to a lost civilization, but as a tribute to the visionary founder who started it all. Thanks so much for joining me on this exploration of Maya history. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more stories from the ancient world. Let me know in the comments what other topics you'd like to see covered. See you next time. Welcome back to our journey. Today, in Chapter 5, we witness the birth of a metropolis, a city built not just of stone, but of ceremony and belief. As the population grew, so did the ambition of its builders. What began as scattered settlements was now coalescing into a grand, organized urban landscape. This wasn't just construction. It was the creation of a cosmos on Earth. At the very heart of this burgeoning city lay the Great Plaza. Imagine a vast open expanse, meticulously leveled and paved. This was the community's primary gathering space, the stage for public life. It was here that markets would have buzzed with energy, artisans displaying their crafts and farmers trading their produce. More than just a marketplace, the plaza was a social nexus, a place where news was exchanged, alliances were forged, and the collective identity of the city was reinforced day by day. It was the city's living room, open to the sky. Flanking the main plaza, a different kind of arena took shape, the ball court. These eye-shaped structures with their high, sloping walls were far more than simple sports fields. The ball game played here was a sacred ritual, a reenactment of cosmic battles between gods of the heavens and the underworld. The players were not just athletes. They were participants in a deeply religious drama. The solid rubber ball, bouncing unpredictably off the stone walls, represented the sun, the moon, or the stars. The game's outcome was believed to hold profound significance, sometimes even deciding matters of life and death, or predicting the success of a harvest or a military campaign. The construction of these ball courts signified the central role of ritual and mythology in the city's daily rhythm. Rising above the plazas and ball courts, the temples began to pierce the skyline. These were the most sacred and ambitious structures of all. Built atop towering, stepped pyramids, they were designed to be man-made mountains, connecting the earthly realm to the celestial one. Climbing the steep stairways was a symbolic journey from the mundane world to the home of the gods. Inside the small chambers at the summit, priests conducted secret rites, made offerings, and interpreted divine will. The exteriors were often adorned with elaborate carvings and painted in vibrant colors, reds, blues, and yellows, depicting deities, mythical creatures, and historical rulers. Each temple was a testament to the city's devotion and a powerful symbol of the elite's connection to the supernatural world. They were focal points for worship and pilgrimage, drawing people from the surrounding regions. As the ceremonial core of the city solidified, a complex network of residential zones radiated outwards. These weren't haphazardly placed. The city was carefully zoned. Closest to the temples and plazas lived the elite, the ruler, the high priests, and the noble families. Their homes were spacious compounds, often built of stone, with multiple rooms arranged around private courtyards. These residences were often decorated with murals and carvings, mirroring the grandeur of the nearby temples. They were both private homes and administrative centers, where the business of the state was conducted. Further out, you would find the neighborhoods of the artisans, the craftspeople who were the lifeblood of the city's economy. Masons, potters, weavers, and scribes lived in more modest, yet well-organized housing clusters. Here, workshops buzzed with activity, producing the goods that supplied the city and were traded far and wide. The layout of these neighborhoods often reflected their craft, with potters located near clay sources and water, and masons near the quarries or construction sites. This organization highlights a sophisticated understanding of urban planning, maximizing efficiency and fostering communities of skill. On the city's periphery were the farmers, the foundation of the entire society. Their homes were simpler, often made of wattle and daub with thatched roofs, but they were part of the same urban system. They lived on the edge of the city, close to the fields that fed thousands. This zoning ensured a steady supply of food while integrating the agricultural population into the city's social and ceremonial life. They would come into the central plaza for market days and religious festivals, connecting their daily labor to the cosmic rhythm dictated by the priests in the temples. What is truly remarkable is the architectural harmony that emerged. The entire city was laid out with a celestial blueprint in mind. Major avenues and the orientation of key buildings were often aligned with the movements of the sun, moon, and stars, particularly Venus. The summer solstice sunrise might illuminate the main temple entrance, or a particular constellation might appear perfectly framed by a specific doorway on a certain night. This alignment wasn't for aesthetic reasons alone. It was a way to integrate the city into the cosmos to ensure it was in tune with the universe and the cycles of time. This architectural precision turned the city into a giant functioning calendar and observatory. This deliberate design and monumental construction transformed the city into a true cultural capital. It became a magnet drawing people, ideas, and tribute from across the land. The ceremonies performed here were not just for its residents. They were for the entire region. Pilgrims traveled for days or even weeks to witness the grand festivals, to participate in the rituals, and to feel the divine power that was concentrated in this sacred space. The city's influence radiated outwards, not just through military might or trade, but through the power of its culture, its religion, and its art. The city became a center of knowledge. Priests and scribes here developed writing and mathematics to new heights. They recorded their history on stone stelae, tracked the movements of the stars with incredible accuracy, and managed the complex logistics of a large urban population. The art style perfected here, the pottery, the murals, the sculptures became the standard, emulated in smaller towns and villages hundreds of miles away. It was a beacon of civilization, a place where human creativity and spiritual devotion were expressed on the most magnificent scale. Every stone was placed with purpose. The plazas were designed for inclusion, the ball courts for ritual, the temples for transcendence. The layout of the homes reflected a social order that everyone understood. Walking through these streets, one would have been constantly reminded of their place in the world and their connection to the gods. The city was a living, breathing entity, its stone structures a permanent declaration of its people's beliefs, achievements, and aspirations. It was more than a place to live. It was the center of their universe. Thank you for joining us as we watch this city of stone and ceremony rise from the ground. Next time, we will explore the intricate web of power, trade, and tribute that sustained this magnificent capital. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter in our story. See you then. Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today, we're diving deep into the jungles of Central America to uncover the secrets of one of the most iconic features of Maya civilization, the stela. You've probably seen them before, these towering, intricately carved stone monuments that stand like silent sentinels in the ruins of ancient cities. But what exactly are they? Why did the Maya pour so much effort into creating these massive stone pillars? In this chapter, we're going to explore why Maya stelae became stories in stone, transforming simple markers into complex narratives of power, cosmology, and history. So let's start with the basics. A stela, or stelae in plural, is a tall sculpted stone shaft or slab, often associated with a low circular stone altar. They are one of the most distinctive forms of Maya art and writing. When you walk through the plazas of cities like Tikal, Copan, or Quirigua, you're literally surrounded by them. They were typically carved from a single block of limestone, or in some regions, sandstone or volcanic tuff. The Maya would quarry these massive stones, transport them, without wheels or draft animals mind you, and then meticulously carve them with images and hieroglyphic texts. These carvings are incredibly detailed. On the front you'll almost always find a portrait of a ruler. They're not just simple faces. These are full-figure portraits showing the king or queen in all their glory. They are depicted wearing elaborate costumes, heavy jewelry, and spectacular headdresses, often adorned with the feathers of the quetzal bird. The rulers are shown holding symbols of power, like a ceremonial bar or a scepter, signifying their divine right to rule. These aren't just portraits. They're powerful statements. They present the ruler as the central axis of the community, the bridge between the mortal world and the divine realms. But the story doesn't end with the image. The sides and sometimes the back of the stela are usually covered in columns of Maya hieroglyphs. This script, a beautiful and complex system of phonetic signs and logograms, tells us the who, what, when, and where of the events being commemorated. And the when is incredibly important. The Maya were obsessed with time. Their calendar system was one of the most sophisticated in the ancient world, and they recorded dates with astonishing precision. Nearly every stela includes what archaeologists call the long count date. This date pinpoints the exact day in the vast cycle of Maya time that the monument was dedicated. This allows us to date these monuments with incredible accuracy, often to a single day. The texts then go on to describe the significant events that happened on or around that date. These could be rituals the ruler performed, important dynastic events like births, marriages, or accessions to the throne, or even military victories over rival cities. So when we put the image and the text together, what do we get? We get a multi-layered piece of political propaganda. Imagine you're a Maya commoner in the 8th century, living in a bustling city. You walk into the main plaza, and you're confronted by a row of these towering stelae. You see the larger-than-life image of your ruler, decked out in divine regalia. Even if you couldn't read the detailed hieroglyphs, the message is clear. This is your leader, a powerful, godlike figure who maintains order in the cosmos and ensures the prosperity of the city. The stela reinforces the ruler's authority and legitimizes their reign. It's a public declaration of power, meant to awe and inspire loyalty in the local population, and to intimidate any potential rivals. For those who could read, the text provided the historical and genealogical proof of that legitimacy. But stelae were more than just billboards for kings. They were also deeply connected to the Maya understanding of the cosmos. Their placement within the city plazas was not random. Many stelae were aligned with the movements of the sun, moon, and stars. For example, a stela might be positioned so that on the solstice, the sun rises or sets directly behind it. This transformed the monument into a giant astronomical marker, a physical manifestation of the ruler's ability to track and control time. By associating their reign with major celestial events, rulers demonstrated that their power was not just political but cosmic. They were the masters of the calendar, the keepers of sacred cycles. The rituals they performed, which are often depicted on the stelae, were believed to be essential for maintaining the balance of the universe and ensuring the continuation of life itself. The stela, then, becomes a cosmic clock and a stage for sacred theater. Finally, and perhaps most importantly for us today, stelae served as historical records. They are our primary source for understanding the political history of the classic Maya period, from about 250 to 900 AD. By cross-referencing the dates and events recorded on stelae from different cities, archaeologists have been able to reconstruct intricate histories of alliances, wars, and royal lineages. We know the names of hundreds of Maya kings and queens, their birth dates, the dates they took the throne, and even the dates of their deaths, all thanks to these stone chronicles. For instance, the stelae at Quirigua in Guatemala tell the dramatic story of how its ruler, Cake Tili Chan Yopat, captured the king of the powerful city of Copan and established his own city's independence. Without these stories in stone, this entire chapter of human history would be lost to us. They are a library carved in limestone. So as we can see, Maya stelae are incredibly complex objects. They are not just static sculptures. They are a dynamic fusion of art, writing, and science. They are political propaganda, astronomical instruments, and historical documents all rolled into one. They tell the story of powerful rulers who presented themselves as divine kings, masters of time, and pivotal figures in the history of their people. They transformed mute stone into a vibrant, enduring narrative, a story that continues to captivate and inform us over 1,000 years later. They are a testament to the ingenuity and complexity of the Maya worldview, a true window into a lost world. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the world of the Maya. If you found this fascinating, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next chapter. We have so much more to explore together. See you next time. Welcome back, history buffs and art lovers, to Chapter 7 of our deep dive into ancient civilizations. Today we're stepping into the dusty, sacred workshops of master artisans to uncover the secrets behind one of the most awe-inspiring achievements of the ancient world, the art of glyph carving. Imagine a time long before modern machinery, a time when human hands armed with nothing but ingenuity and rudimentary tools shaped the very stone of the earth into monuments that would whisper their stories for millennia. This is the story of how colossal monoliths were born and how they were given a voice through the sacred language of glyphs. Our journey begins with the tools themselves, simple yet incredibly effective in the hands of a master. The primary instruments were obsidian blades. Forged in the heart of volcanoes, obsidian is a natural glass. And when fractured, it creates an edge sharper than a modern surgical scalpel. These razor-sharp blades were perfect for the fine, delicate work of incising intricate details into the stone. Imagine a carver, their hand steady, their eye focused, using a shard of obsidian to etch the curve of a deity, Shesh's eye, or the feather of a mythical bird. It was a task requiring immense patience and precision, where a single slip could mar a week's worth of work. Alongside the obsidian blades were the heavy hitters, stone chisels. Crafted from harder, more durable rock like basalt or chert, these chisels were the workhorses of the quarry and the carving site. Paired with heavy stone mallets, they were used for the monumental task of shaping the raw limestone blocks. Picture the scene. The rhythmic clang of stone against stone echoing through the quarry as teams of workers chip away, slowly but surely releasing a towering monolith from its rocky prison. It was back-breaking, painstaking labor, guided by an incredible understanding of geology and fracture mechanics. The artisans had to know exactly where to strike with just the right amount of force to split the limestone along its natural grain without shattering the entire block. The process of creating a monolith was a grand undertaking, a project that could span years, even generations. It all started in the limestone quarries. Once a suitable block was identified, the quarrymen would begin the arduous process of cutting it free. They would carve deep channels around the block using their stone chisels. Then, they might have inserted wooden wedges into these channels and soaked them with water. As the wood swelled, the immense pressure would crack the limestone, freeing the massive block. Think about the sheer scale of this operation, moving a multi-ton block of stone from the quarry to the city center, often over miles of difficult terrain, using nothing but log rollers, ropes, and raw human power. It was a testament to their collective will and organizational prowess. Once the monolith arrived at its final destination, it was carefully erected, a feat of engineering in itself. Only then could the true artistic work begin. The raw, imposing stone pillar was a blank canvas, waiting to be transformed. The master carver would first sketch the design onto the surface, perhaps using charcoal. This layout was the blueprint for the entire story the monolith would tell. Then, using the stone chisels, they would begin the rough shaping, removing large chunks of limestone to define the major forms of the figures and symbols. This was a process of reduction, of revealing the art that lay hidden within the stone. As the general shapes emerged, the work would become progressively finer. The carvers would switch to smaller chisels and, eventually, to those razor-sharp obsidian blades. With these, they would carve the intricate details that brought the monument to life, the subtle textures of fabric, the individual strands of hair, and most importantly, the sacred glyphs. Each mark was deliberate, each line imbued with purpose. The surface of the stone would come alive with a complex tapestry of images and text, a vibrant narrative frozen in time. The final step might involve polishing the stone with sand and water, giving it a smooth, almost luminous finish that would catch the sunlight and make the carvings stand out in sharp relief. But these carvings were far more than mere decoration. They were the written language of the gods, a sacred script known as glyphs. In this culture, writing wasn't just for record-keeping. It was a powerful, magical act. Each glyph was a universe of meaning in itself. A single symbol could represent a sound, an object, an idea, or even a complex philosophical concept. They were pictographic, meaning they often looked like what they represented: a jaguar glyph for power, a serpent for divinity, a water symbol for life and purity. But the genius of this script lay in its layers of meaning. Let's take a closer look. A glyph might have a phonetic value, representing a syllable in a spoken word. But that same glyph could also have a logographic meaning, representing an entire word or concept. And it didn't stop there. The context, the placement of the glyph, and the symbols surrounding it could all alter its interpretation, adding shades of nuance and poetic depth. For example, a glyph for king might be combined with a symbol for divine to create the title divine ruler. The carvers and scribes were not just artists. They were linguists, theologians, and historians, weaving together these layers of meaning to create texts of incredible complexity and beauty. These monoliths, often called stelae, served as public monuments. They were erected in the central plazas of cities to commemorate great victories, record royal lineages, mark the passage of time, and document important celestial events. They were the history books, the newspapers, and the religious texts of their time, all rolled into one. For a largely illiterate populace, the images on the stelae were paramount. They could read the story of a great battle by looking at the depiction of the victorious king standing over his captured enemies. The accompanying glyphs, however, provided the deeper, more detailed narrative for the educated elite, the priests and scribes who held the keys to this sacred knowledge. Imagine standing before one of these towering stone monuments in its prime. It would have likely been painted in brilliant colors, vibrant reds, blues, yellows, and greens, making the figures and glyphs leap from the stone. It would have been a breathtaking sight, a powerful symbol of the king's authority and the city's connection to the divine cosmos. Reading the glyphs was an act of communion with the ancestors and the gods. Each symbol, meticulously carved with obsidian and chisel, was a portal to another realm, a piece of a grand cosmic puzzle. The art of glyph carving was more than a craft. It was a sacred duty. Through their skill and devotion, these ancient artisans transformed inert limestone into living monuments. They gave stone a voice, a memory, and a soul. Their tools may have been simple, but their vision was monumental. And thanks to their incredible work, we can still hear their stories echoing down through the centuries, carried on the silent stone lips of their glyphs. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the art of glyph carving. I hope you've gained a new appreciation for the incredible skill and dedication that went into creating these ancient masterpieces. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next chapter. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, keep exploring. Welcome back to our journey through the heart of the Maya world. Today, we're in Chapter 8, and we're about to meet a true masterpiece. Stelae, the Jewel of Copan. This monument is so breathtakingly beautiful that it stands as a testament to the peak of Maya artistic achievement. It's more than just a stone carving. It's a window into the soul of a powerful king and the cosmos he inhabited. The figure we see immortalized here is the legendary Uaxtlajuan Will, better known by his nickname 18 Rabbit. He was the 13th ruler of Copan, and his reign marked a golden age of art and architecture. Stelae was erected in the year 731 AD to celebrate a major period-ending ceremony, and it captures the king in a moment of supreme power and divine connection. Let's look closer at the style. Unlike earlier, flatter stelae, Stelae is carved almost completely in the round. It feels less like a two-dimensional relief and more like a full-fledged statue. The artists at Copan achieved a level of naturalism and detail that is simply astonishing. You can almost feel the texture of the materials, the weight of the regalia. This high-relief style was a hallmark of 18 Rabbit's reign, pushing the boundaries of what was possible in stone. Now let's examine the king's posture. He stands front-facing, a pose of direct confrontation and authority. This isn't a passive portrait. It's an active presentation of power. His gaze is steady, looking out across the centuries. His feet are pointed outwards, a conventional Maya pose that gives the figure a solid, grounded presence. He's not just a man. He's a pillar connecting the earth and the heavens, standing firm at the center of his kingdom. But it's the ceremonial clothing and regalia that truly tell the story. Every single element is packed with cosmic symbolism. Cradled in his arms, he holds a double-headed serpent bar. This isn't just a fancy staff, it's a conduit of sacred power. From the mouths of the serpents, deities emerge, representing the gateway between the natural world and the supernatural realm. By holding this bar, 18 Rabbit is showing his ability to communicate with the gods and channel their power for the benefit of his people. Look at his headdress. It's an elaborate, towering creation, a universe in itself. We see a depiction of the principal bird deity, a celestial creature associated with the heavens. There are also masks of the sun god, Kainach-Ahau, and other supernatural beings woven into the design. His headdress is a microcosm of the Maya cosmos, placing the king directly beneath the celestial canopy. He wears massive ear spools, a heavy jade necklace, and a wide belt adorned with sacred symbols and images of ancestors. These aren't just jewelry. They are instruments of ritual, each piece imbued with protective power and a connection to his divine lineage. His loincloth and kilt are incredibly intricate, covered with patterns and masks that represent cosmic forces. You can see jade celts hanging from his belt, clinking together, perhaps meant to mimic the sound of thunder or the rattle of a serpent. This entire outfit was a ritual costume designed to transform the king from a mortal ruler into a living embodiment of the world tree, the Axis Mundi, that connects the three levels of the Maya cosmos: the underworld, the earthly realm, and the heavens. When we look at Stelae, we're seeing 18 Rabbit not just as a king, but as a divine shaman, a master of ceremonies who could navigate the complex spiritual landscape. The sides and back of the stela are covered in some of the most beautifully carved hieroglyphs ever found. These texts don't just give us the date. They recount the king's lineage, his titles, and the sacred rituals he performed. They are the spoken part of the ceremony frozen in stone. Stelae is a visual symphony. The flow of the lines, the deep shadows created by the carving, the sheer density of information, it all works together to create an overwhelming sense of awe. The Maya artists who created this weren't just stone carvers. They were theologians, astronomers, and historians. They understood how to weave together art, science, and religion into a single, cohesive statement of power and belief. Tragically, this glorious era would not last. Just a few years after this stela was erected, 18 Rabbit was captured and sacrificed by a rival king from the nearby city of Quirigua. It was a shocking event that sent ripples through the Maya world and marked the beginning of a decline for Copan. But stela remains a silent and powerful monument to a king at the zenith of his power, a moment of perfect balance before the fall. It reminds us that even in ancient times, glory could be fleeting, but great art is eternal. Stelae isn't just the jewel of Copan. It's one of the great treasures of human civilization. It's a masterclass in how to tell a complex story through imagery, transforming a piece of stone into a vibrant, living portal to another time. Thank you for joining me to explore this incredible monument. If you found this as fascinating as I do, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next chapter. We have so much more to discover together. See you next time. Welcome back to our journey through the ancient Maya world. Today, we're standing before one of the most magnificent stone monuments ever created, Stela B from Copan. This isn't just a sculpture, it's a history book, a divine charter, and a political statement all carved in stone. Let's decode its secrets together. Stela B was commissioned by one of Copan's greatest rulers, Waxuclajun Oboa Keawil, also known as 18 Rabbit. Erected in the Great Plaza, this monument was designed to be seen, to impress, and to communicate a powerful message. It's a masterpiece of Maya art, showcasing the ruler in his full glorious regalia. Look at the intricate details, the massive headdress, the ceremonial bar he holds, the jaguar pelts, and the rich jewelry. Every single element is symbolic, packed with meaning about his power and his divine right to rule. So how did kings like 18 Rabbit use stelae to solidify their power? It was all about connection. These monuments were public declarations that linked the king directly to the gods and their revered ancestors. On Stela B, 18 Rabbit isn't just portrayed as a man. He's depicted as the embodiment of the maize god, the source of life and sustenance for his people. The sides and back of the stela are covered in hieroglyphic text, which tells the story of his reign and, crucially, connects his lineage back to the founding dynasty of Copan and even further back to mythological creation events. By carving these stories in stone, he was saying, "My rule is not an accident of history. It is divinely ordained, part of the cosmic order." This was propaganda at its most sophisticated, a way to legitimize his authority in the eyes of his subjects, his rivals, and the gods themselves. One of the most fascinating aspects of Maya stelae is their precise dating system. Known as the long count, the Maya were brilliant astronomers and mathematicians, and they developed a calendar that could track vast spans of time. On Stela B, we find a specific long count date that marks its dedication. Let's break down how it works. The long count is a base 20 system that counts the number of days from a mythical starting point, equivalent to August 11, 3114 BC in our calendar. The date is written as a series of 5 numbers, representing periods of time: the Big Tan, Keatan, Winal, and Kayan. A Kayan is 1 day, a Winal is 20 days. A Tan is 360 days, close to a solar year. A Keatan is 20 tons and a Big Tan is 20 Keatans, or about 394 years. The dedication date on Stela B is 9.15.0.0.0. This translates to the 9th Big Tan, 5th 10th Keatan, 0 Tan, 0 Winal, and 0 Kayan. This specific date, a period-ending event, was hugely significant to the Maya. It was a time for grand ceremonies, renewal, and monumental construction. By dedicating Stela B on this exact day, 18 Rabbit was aligning his reign with the cyclical rhythm of the cosmos. He wasn't just marking time. He was participating in the sacred act of creating it, of ensuring the universe continued on its proper course. Furthermore, the placement and orientation of these stelae often had astronomical significance. The Great Plaza at Copan, where Stela B stands, was a massive public space designed for ceremony. The arrangement of stelae within the plaza created sightlines that aligned with the movements of the sun, moon, and Venus on important dates. These monuments were not just static sculptures. They were active participants in a celestial theater. They were cosmic clocks, helping the king and his priests track the seasons, predict astronomical events, and perform the necessary rituals to maintain balance between the human world and the divine realm. When the sun rose or set in perfect alignment with a stela on a solstice, for example, it would have been a breathtaking spectacle, a powerful demonstration of the king's ability to commune with the cosmos and harness its power for the good of his people. So, when we look at Stela B, we see more than just a portrait of a king. We see a complex narrative of power, legitimacy, and cosmic order. 18 Rabbit used this monument to weave his own story into the fabric of time itself. He presented himself as a divine conduit, the vital link between his people and the gods, and the guarantor of the universe's stability. The text recounts his ancestral line, the rituals he performed, and his divine mandate. The date ties his actions to the grand cycle of the long count calendar. And his image, larger than life and brimming with divine symbolism, projects an aura of absolute authority. These stelae were the billboards, the history books, and the sacred texts of the ancient Maya, all rolled into one. They were how rulers like 18 Rabbit immortalized themselves, ensuring their stories would be told for generations to come. And even today, over 1,000 years later, Stela B continues to tell its powerful story, offering us a window into the mind of a Maya king and the sophisticated civilization he ruled. It's a testament to the enduring power of art and story to transcend time. Thank you so much for joining me to explore the incredible story of Stela B. The world of the ancient Maya is filled with such wonders, and we've only just scratched the surface. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please hit that like button and subscribe for more adventures into the past. Let me know in the comments what you find most fascinating about Maya culture. Until next time, keep exploring. Welcome back to our journey through the incredible city of Copan. In this chapter, we're zooming out from the individual stelae to understand their place within the grander urban landscape. We'll explore how these magnificent stone monuments, particularly Stela D, E, and F, were strategically placed throughout the city, transforming it into a living, breathing work of art and science. These weren't just isolated sculptures. They were integral parts of a meticulously planned environment, interacting with plazas, temples, and sacred routes. Let's begin by imagining ourselves standing in the heart of Copan, the Great Plaza. This vast, open space was the public stage of the city, and it was anything but empty. The stelae were the main actors here. Picture Stela D not just as a portrait of the ruler Waxaclajunaba, but as a towering landmark, a focal point visible from across the plaza. Its placement was deliberate, designed to be seen by crowds during grand ceremonies. It wasn't just art. It was a statement of power and divine connection, positioned to command attention and awe. The plaza itself was framed by monumental architecture, like the tiered platforms of the temples in the famous Hieroglyphic Stairway. The stelae acted as intermediaries, bridging the human scale of the plaza floor with the divine scale of the temples that reached for the sky. They were signposts on a sacred journey. Now let's consider Stela F, located slightly north of the main group in the Great Plaza. Its position is fascinating because it seems to mark the beginning of a processional way. Imagine a priest or even the king himself beginning a ritual here. A path would lead them past a series of other monuments, each one a chapter in a larger story. Stela F, with its intricate carvings and portrait of the king, would serve as the opening verse. Its location suggests it was the starting point for public ceremonies that moved through the city's core. As processions moved south through the plaza, they would pass Stela H, Stela A, and others, creating a narrative sequence. The arrangement wasn't random, it was choreographed. The space between the stelae was just as important as the stelae themselves, creating a rhythm for movement and contemplation. The city planners used these monuments to guide the flow of people and energy through the sacred precinct. Moving on to Stela E, we find a bit of a mystery. This stela wasn't found in the Great Plaza with the others. Instead, it was erected in the West Court, a more restricted, perhaps more administrative or residential area of the Acropolis. This different context tells us something crucial. While the stelae in the Great Plaza were for public consumption, Stelae might have served a different audience. Perhaps it was for the elite, the royal family, and high-ranking officials who lived and worked within the Acropolis complex. Its placement near key buildings in this court suggests it was part of the daily life of the ruling class, a constant reminder of the king's presence and authority, even in these more private spaces. It shows that the king's image and power permeated every corner of the city, from the grand public squares to the exclusive inner sanctums of the elite. The relationship between the stelae and the temples is also deeply symbolic. Many stelae were placed directly in front of major temple pyramids. For example, Stela D stands before structure 4. This isn't a coincidence. The temple was seen as a sacred mountain, a portal to the supernatural world. The stela, bearing the image of the divine king, stood at the threshold of this portal. It acted as a guardian and an anchor, grounding the otherworldly power of the temple in the human realm through the figure of the ruler. The king, depicted on the stela, was presented as the mediator between the people in the plaza and the gods who resided in the temple. This powerful visual pairing reinforced the king's role as the central axis of the cosmos, connecting the earth, the underworld, and the heavens. Let's also think about the processional routes. Copan wasn't just a collection of buildings. It was a city designed for movement, specifically ritual movement. Causeways, known as sakbib, connected different parts of the city. These raised white roads were arteries of sacred energy. Stelae were often placed at the beginning and/or key junctions along these routes. They were like milestones on a pilgrimage. Imagine walking along a sakb from a residential district towards the Acropolis. You would encounter stelae along the way, preparing you for the sacred experience that awaited you in the city's core. They sequenced the journey, building anticipation and reinforcing the ideological messages of the rulers at every step. The entire city became a scripted experience, a landscape that told a story as you moved through it. Now for one of the most brilliant aspects of Copan's urban design, the creation of a stone calendar. The placement of the stelae wasn't just about politics and religion. It was also about time and cosmology. Stela E, for instance, is part of a larger astronomical arrangement. Along with another monument, Stela C, it forms an alignment that tracks the movement of the sun. From a specific vantage point, an observer could watch the sun set behind one of these stelae on key dates, like the equinoxes. This transformed the entire valley into a massive astronomical observatory. The stelae weren't just statues. They were precision instruments. This stone calendar publicly demonstrated the king's mastery over time and the cosmos. He wasn't just a political leader. He was a master of science, able to predict the seasons and ensure the agricultural fertility upon which his kingdom depended. This concept of a citywide calendar is profound. The landscape itself became a clock. The Maya of Copan didn't just write about their calendar. They built it into the very fabric of their city. The stelae, scattered across the valley floor and within the urban core, were markers in both space and time. As the sun journeyed across the sky throughout the year, it would interact with different monuments, creating a series of celestial events visible to the entire population. This integrated the daily lives of the people with the grand cycles of the cosmos, all orchestrated and interpreted by the divine king. Stelae D, E, and F were key components of this system, each playing a role in this complex interplay of architecture, astronomy, and power. So when we look at Stela D, E, and F, we must see them not in isolation, but as part of a dynamic and intelligent system. They were carefully positioned to shape human experience, guide ritual movement, and demonstrate a profound understanding of the cosmos. They defined the public and private spaces of the city, linking plazas to temples and creating a network of meaning that stretched across the entire Copán Valley. They were anchors in a landscape of power, art, and science. The Maya rulers of Copan didn't just build monuments. They sculpted the very space around them, creating a city that was a testament to their vision and a stage for their divine authority. The entire city was a single cohesive masterpiece, and the stelae were its most eloquent expressions. Thank you so much for joining me on this walkthrough of the monumental landscape of Copan. It is truly amazing to see how every piece of this ancient city was part of a larger, interconnected vision. If you enjoyed this deeper look, please hit that like button and subscribe for more explorations into this fascinating world. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next chapter. Welcome back to our journey through the ancient Maya world. Today, We re-diving deep into the life of one of Copan's most fascinating and influential rulers, Uaxtlajuan Aboa Keowil, a name so grand that archaeologists have affectionately nicknamed him 18 Rabbit. Get ready, because this is a story of immense power, unparalleled artistic vision, and ultimately, a tragic downfall that shook the Maya civilization. So who was 18 Rabbit? He was the 13th ruler in the Copan dynasty, ascending to the throne in the year 695 AD. From the very beginning, it was clear he was not going to be a quiet background king. He was a visionary, a man with a burning ambition to transform his city into the artistic and spiritual heart of the Maya world. And for nearly 3 decades he did just that. He inherited a powerful kingdom, but he was determined to leave his own indelible mark, to make Copan a true marvel of the ancient world. His reign is often called Copan's Golden Age, and for good reason. Walk through the ruins of Copan today, and you are walking through 18 Rabbit's city. His legacy is literally carved in stone. He was a master of propaganda and public art, understanding that to be a great king, you needed to look the part. He commissioned a staggering number of monuments, more than any ruler before him. His most famous works are the magnificent stelae that populate the Great Plaza. These aren't just simple stone pillars. They are masterpieces of Maya sculpture. Each one depicts 18 Rabbit himself, not as a mere mortal, but as a divine figure, adorned in the elaborate regalia of the gods. One stela shows him as the maize god, another as the sun god. He's wrapped in feathers, laden with jade, and holds the ceremonial bar, a symbol of supreme authority. The level of detail is breathtaking. The artists he employed were true masters of their craft, carving the hard volcanic tuff with such fluidity that the stone seems almost alive. These stelae were 3-dimensional portraits, designed to be walked around and admired from all angles. They were a constant, public declaration of his power and his divine right to rule. But his building frenzy didn't stop with stelae. 18 Rabbit was also responsible for remodeling one of Copan's most important structures, the ball court. The Mesoamerican ball game was more than just a sport. It was a deeply religious ritual, a reenactment of cosmic battles between gods. By commissioning a new, grander ball court, the one we can still see today, 18 Rabbit was making a powerful statement. He was placing himself at the center of Copan's spiritual life, positioning himself as the chief intermediary between his people and the divine. The markers on his ball court even feature his name, forever linking him to this sacred activity. And then there's the Hieroglyphic Stairway. While much of it was completed by his successor, it was 18 Rabbit who began this monumental project. The stairway contains the longest known Maya hieroglyphic text, detailing the history of the Copan dynasty. It was a project designed to legitimize his rule by tying it directly to the city's long and storied past. He was not just a king. He was the culmination of a divine lineage, a pivotal figure in a grand historical narrative that he himself was helping to write. Everything he built was a calculated move to cement his authority, display his wealth, and express his deep piety. For 38 years, 18 Rabbit's strategy worked. Copan flourished. Its influence spread, and it became a major political player in the southern Maya lowlands. He controlled key trade routes, particularly for precious jade, and established a network of alliances. He was, by all accounts, at the peak of his power. He was a king who seemed to have it all: military strength, artistic genius, and the favor of the gods. But in the world of Maya politics, power was a fragile thing. The seeds of his downfall were sown in a nearby, seemingly subordinate city called Quirigua. For years, Quirigua had been a vassal of Copan. In fact, it was 18 Rabbit himself who presided over the accession of Quirigua's new ruler, a man named Kake Tilichin Yopat, or Cowixsky. For a time, everything seemed normal. Cowixsky even referred to 18 Rabbit as his overlord in his early monuments. But something shifted. Cowixsky began to have ambitions of his own. Behind the scenes, a great power struggle was unfolding. The dominant superpower of the Maya world at the time was Calakmul, the Great Snake Kingdom. It seems that Cowixsky, seeking to break free from Copan's control, made a secret alliance with Calakmul. Suddenly, the small vassal state of Quirigua had the backing of a military giant. This was a direct challenge to 18 Rabbit's authority and a major threat to the stability of the entire region. In the year 738 AD, the unthinkable happened. We don't know the exact details of the battle, but we know the outcome. 18 Rabbit, the great king, the master builder, the man portrayed as a living god on his own monuments, was captured. It's hard to imagine the shock that must have rippled through the Maya world. This wasn't just a military defeat. It was a profound cosmic and spiritual crisis. And the humiliation didn't end with his capture. Cake Tili Chen Yopat of Quirigua took his former overlord back to his own city. There, in what must have been a stunning public ritual, the mighty 18 rabbit was sacrificed. He was beheaded. An inscription at Quirigua bluntly states it. The axe was wielded ... against Uaxacojuan Ab'a Kaowil. The impact on Copan was immediate and devastating. For the next 2 decades, all major construction at the city came to a halt. Not a single new monument was raised. The city fell into a period of silence and introspection. The death of their divine king had thrown the entire kingdom into chaos. How could a man so favored by the gods meet such a brutal and humiliating end? It was a question that must have haunted the people of Copan. The story of 18 Rabbit is a powerful cautionary tale. It's a story about the heights of human ambition and the fragility of power. He transformed his city into an artistic paradise and ruled as a divine king, only to be brought down by a rival he likely underestimated. His life shows us that even the most powerful rulers in the ancient world were subject to the shifting tides of politics and warfare. But his death does not erase his legacy. The magnificent stelae still stand in the great plaza, silent stone witnesses to the golden age of a king who dared to be a god, and who paid the ultimate price for his ambition. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the life of 18 Rabbit. It's a story that truly brings the ancient Maya world to life. If you enjoyed this, please hit that like button, subscribe for more tales from history, and let me know in the comments which ancient ruler you'd like to hear about next. See you in the next video. Welcome back to our journey through the history of the Maya. In our last chapter, we witnessed a shocking event, the capture and execution of Uaxacojuan Ubahe Kawil, the great king of Copan, better known as 18 Rabbit. This was a seismic event, a moment that sent ripples of shock throughout the Maya world. For decades, Copan had been a powerhouse, a city of immense artistic and political influence, and 18 Rabbit was the very embodiment of that power. His sudden and violent death at the hands of Quirigua, a much smaller vassal state, was unthinkable. It wasn't just the death of a king. It was the shattering of an illusion of invincibility, so the big question is, what happened next? How does a major city-state, a civilization's cultural heart, recover from such a devastating blow? Did Copan simply collapse? Did its enemies swarm in to pick at the remains? The answer is far more complex and fascinating than a simple story of decline. This is the story of resilience, adaptation, and the enduring spirit of a people who refused to let the death of one king define their future. Today, we delve into the aftermath, exploring how Copan navigated the treacherous waters following the loss of its most illustrious ruler. In the immediate aftermath of 18 Rabbit's death, a heavy silence fell over Copan. For the next 17 years, not a single major monument was raised. Think about that for a moment. This was a city that had spent the last century defining itself through stone, carving its history, its rituals, and its royal lineage into magnificent stelae and altars. The Great Plaza, which 18 Rabbit had turned into a veritable forest of stone portraits, suddenly stopped growing. This construction hiatus speaks volumes. It's a sign of profound shock, political instability, and a deep crisis of confidence. The divine mandate of the king, his connection to the gods, had been violently severed. The city was in mourning, but it was also in a state of deep uncertainty. Who would rule? And how could they restore faith in the institution of kingship? The man who eventually stepped into this power vacuum was Cake Joplai Chan Kaowil, the 14th ruler in the dynasty. His name translates to smoke monkey. He ascended to the throne about a year after 18 Rabbit's death, but his reign was unlike any that came before. There are no grand monuments celebrating his accession, no towering stelae proclaiming his greatness. In fact, he is one of the most obscure of Copan's later kings. This lack of monumental fanfare is telling. It suggests a ruler with diminished authority, perhaps a king who was unable to command the resources or the political will to engage in the grand building projects of his predecessor. The kingdom was likely in a state of economic distress, its tribute networks disrupted by the political upheaval. Smoke Monkey's reign was a period of quiet consolidation, a time for licking wounds rather than grand pronouncements. It was his successor, the 15th ruler, Cake Upuaj Chan Kaowil, or smoke squirrel, who began the slow process of pulling Copan back from the brink. He ascended the throne in 749 AD, and with him, the sound of chisels on stone returned to the city. But the art and architecture of this new era were different. They reflected a changed reality. Instead of the grand individualistic stele that celebrated the singular power of the king, like those of 18 Rabbit, the new monuments emphasized collective power and historical continuity. The most magnificent example of this is Hieroglyphic Stairway. This is one of the most incredible achievements of the entire Maya civilization. A massive staircase, composed of over 2,200 individual glyphs, it records the entire dynastic history of Copan, from its founder all the way to the 15th ruler, Smoke Squirrel. This wasn't just a building. It was a powerful political statement. In a time of uncertainty, Smoke Squirrel was essentially saying, "Our city is more than just one man. We have a long storied history, a divine lineage that stretches back for centuries. The dynasty is strong, and it endures." The stairway served to legitimize his own rule by embedding it within this long, unbroken chain of kingship. It was a brilliant piece of propaganda, designed to reassure the nobility and the common people that Copan's foundations were still solid. At the base of this incredible stairway, Smoke Squirrel placed Stelae, a portrait of himself. But even here, the style is different. He's depicted not as an all-powerful warrior but as a ritual practitioner, adorned in the costume of the maize god. The focus is on his role as a spiritual leader, the one who ensures the cosmic cycles continue, rather than a military conqueror. This shift in emphasis is crucial. The old model of the warrior king had failed spectacularly with 18 Rabbit's defeat. The new generation of rulers needed to find a different source of legitimacy, one rooted in ritual, history, and a more collective vision of power. Another key piece of this puzzle is Altar Q, commissioned by the 16th ruler, Yaks Passage Chan Yopat. This incredible monument, a square block of stone, depicts all 16 rulers of Copan's dynasty seated in a row. It shows the founder Kyanich Yaks Kukmo passing the torch of leadership, a scepter of power, directly to Yaks Passage. Once again, the message is one of continuity and legitimacy. But it's a shared legitimacy. Yaks Passage isn't standing alone. He's presented as the rightful heir in a long and unbroken line of kings. It's a council of kings, a historical tableau that reinforces the strength of the institution over any single individual. The trauma of 18 Rabbit's fall had forced Copan's rulers to rethink the very nature of kingship. Power was no longer projected as absolute and individual. It was now presented as collective, historical, and deeply rooted in the city's foundational narrative. So did Copan collapse after 18 Rabbit's death? Not at all. It was wounded, certainly. Its political influence in the region was diminished, and Quirigua, its upstart rival, enjoyed a few decades of independence and artistic flourishing of its own, clearly mimicking the style of its former overlord. But Copan itself didn't fall apart. Instead, it adapted. The city entered a new phase, one defined not by military expansion, but by introspection and a powerful reassertion of its cultural and historical identity. The scribes and artists of Copan, instead of carving tales of conquest, turned inward. They focused on codifying their own history, on creating some of the most complex and beautiful works of art in the Maya world. Like the Hieroglyphic Stairway and Altar Q, this period shows the incredible resilience of Maya society. It demonstrates that the city was more than just its king. The institutions of the court, the knowledge of the scribes, the skills of the artisans, and the faith of the people all continued. They found new ways to express their identity and their place in the cosmos. The collapse of a king was not the collapse of the city. Instead, it triggered a period of profound cultural creativity. It was a crisis that forced Copan to look in the mirror and redefine itself, leaving behind a legacy not of conquest, but of history, art, and an enduring testament to the strength of its people. The story of Copan after 18 Rabbit is not one of failure, but one of the most remarkable comebacks in ancient history. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the history of the Maya. It's a story that never ceases to amaze me with its complexity and drama. If you enjoyed this video and want to continue exploring the ancient world with us, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss our next chapter. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, keep exploring. Welcome back to our journey through the wonders of ancient civilizations. Today we stand before a structure that is more than just stone and mortar. It's the very soul of a dynasty. This is Temple 16, the spiritual heart of the great city of Copan, and the final resting place of its legendary founder. Get ready, because we about to peel back the layers of history and uncover the secrets of the Maya's most sacred royal mountain. Imagine standing in the heart of a bustling city, the air thick with the scent of incense and the sounds of ceremony. All around you, the Acropolis rises, a sprawling complex of palaces, plazas, and pyramids. But one structure dominates the skyline, not just by its height, but by its sheer presence. Temple 16 was the Axis Mundi, the center of the world for the people of Copan. It was here that kings were crowned, where cosmic rituals were performed, and where the living communicated with the divine ancestors who shaped their destiny. This wasn't just a temple. It was the nexus of power, religion, and lineage, a man-made mountain built to channel the forces of the universe. For centuries, archaeologists and historians were captivated by the enigma of Copan's origins. Who was the founder, this revered figure who established a dynasty that would last for 400 years? The glyphs spoke of a powerful ruler named Kuk Mo, or Great Sun, Green Quetzalcoatl. The text said he arrived in Copan, hinting that he came from a distant powerful center, possibly even the great city of Teotihuacan far to the west. He was the root, the foundation upon which the entire royal line was built. But where was he? For decades, his tomb remained one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of Maya archaeology. The search centered on Temple 16. It made sense. If you were going to bury the most important person in your city's history, you would place him at its most sacred point. The challenge was immense. Temple 16 is not a single building, but a series of temples built one on top of the other, like a set of massive Russian nesting dolls. Each successive king would build his own grander temple directly over the one built by his predecessor, encasing the older structures within the new pyramid. It was a tangible act of reverence, each layer a new tribute to the founder buried deep within. To find Kuk Mo, archaeologists would have to tunnel deep into the heart of this sacred mountain, a dangerous and delicate process. Led by a team of dedicated researchers, the work began. They carefully dug a network of tunnels, following the architectural lines of the buried structures. As they burrowed deeper, they went back in time. They passed through the Rosalela Temple, a stunningly preserved structure we've discussed before, and continued downward. Finally, deep within the pyramid's core, beneath layers of construction spanning centuries, they hit a burial chamber. It was a simple yet powerful space. The air was still, untouched for over 1,000 years. Inside, they found the remains of an individual, laid to rest with a wealth of incredible artifacts. The skeleton was that of an older man, and his bones told a remarkable story. He had numerous injuries, including a fractured right forearm that had healed badly, leaving it permanently shielded. This perfectly matched depictions of Kuk Mo in art, where he is always shown with his right arm covered by a small shield. Isotope analysis of his teeth revealed that he had not grown up in Copan, but in the region of Tikal, another great Maya city. This confirmed the textual accounts of his arrival from a foreign land. The evidence was overwhelming. They had found him. They were standing in the tomb of the great founder, Kuk Mo. The burial goods were fit for a king and a warrior. He was adorned with jade, the most precious material to the Maya, symbolizing life, fertility, and power. There were intricate jade pectorals, ear flares, and even inlays in his teeth. Alongside him lay the tools of his trade, ceremonial flint blades, stingray spines used for bloodletting rituals, and symbols of his connection to Teotihuacan. This wasn't just a burial. It was a time capsule, a snapshot of the moment a dynasty was born. Finding this tomb was like finding the Declaration of Independence and the Founding Fathers all rolled into one. It was the anchor point of Copan's entire history. With the founder's tomb discovered, the structure of Temple 16 made perfect sense. The initial tomb was relatively modest. It was his son and successor who built the first major temple over it, a version nicknamed Hunal. This established the tradition. With each new king, a new temple was built, encasing the old one. This architectural layering was a physical manifestation of ancestor veneration. Each new ruler was literally building upon the legacy of his forefathers, grounding his own power in the sanctity of the founder. The pyramid grew taller and more massive with each generation, its spiritual power accumulating over time. It became a living monument, a chronicle of the royal lineage written in stone. One of the most spectacular of these nested temples was the one we know as Rosalila, or Rosy Lilac, named for the color of its preserved stucco. Discovered almost perfectly intact within the later pyramid, Rosalila is a masterpiece of Maya art. Built by the 10th ruler, Moon Jaguar, it was a vibrant 3-story-tall sanctuary dedicated to the deified spirit of Yaxcuc-Mo. Its facades were covered in brilliantly painted stucco sculptures depicting the founder as the sun god, flanked by quetzal birds and macaws, his namesake. This wasn't just a building. It was an active shrine. Priests would have entered its dark inner chambers to burn incense and make offerings, communicating directly with the spirit of the founder who rested just a few meters below. The preservation of Rosalila is extraordinary. Instead of destroying it to build the next temple, the builders of the final version of Temple 16 carefully and ritualistically terminated it. They filled its rooms with stone and white marl, covering the entire building before constructing the new pyramid around it. This careful burial shows the immense respect they had for the structure and the ancestor it honored. They weren't erasing the past. They were sanctifying it, protecting it for eternity within the heart of the new, larger mountain. So, when we look at Temple 16 today, we're not just seeing the final outer layer. We are looking at a monument that contains the entire history of the Copan dynasty within its core. It is a testament to the enduring power of lineage and the central role of ancestor worship in Maya society. The pyramid was the physical link between the living king on the summit and the founding father in the tomb below. Every ceremony performed on its peak resonated with the power of all the rulers who came before, their spirits contained within the layers of stone. It was a dynasty's heart, beating with the rhythm of ritual and remembrance for 400 years. This incredible discovery transformed our understanding of Copan and the Maya world. It confirmed the historical accuracy of the glyphic inscriptions and provided a tangible link to the legendary founder. Temple 16 stands as a powerful symbol of how ancient peoples used architecture to express their deepest beliefs about life, death, and the sacred continuity of power. Thanks for joining us as we delved into the heart of the royal lineage. The story of Copan is far from over, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss our next exploration. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, keep exploring. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our journey through the wonders of the ancient world. Today, we're diving deep into the heart of the Maya civilization, to a place where history isn't just written in books, but carved in stone, creating a monumental story that you can literally climb. We're talking about the incredible Hieroglyphic Stairway of Copan, a true masterpiece and the longest single ancient text ever discovered. Imagine standing at the base of a massive pyramid, structure 26, in the ancient city of Copan, nestled in modern-day Honduras. Before you rise is a staircase unlike any other in the world. This isn't just a way to get to the top. It's a library, a dynastic record, and a sacred monument all rolled into one. The Hieroglyphic Stairway is composed of 62 stone steps, and each riser is intricately carved with Maya glyphs. In total, there are over 2,000 individual glyph blocks that come together to form this sprawling narrative. It's a breathtaking sight, a testament to the skill, ambition, and historical consciousness of the Maya people. So what story does this magnificent stairway tell? It's the official history of the Copan dynasty, a detailed account of its rulers, their triumphs, and their lineage. Think of it as the ultimate royal biography, etched for eternity. The text chronicles the lives and reigns of the kings of Copan, starting from its founder, Yaxcuc-Mo, all the way through to the ruler who commissioned this grand project, the 15th king, known as Smoke Shell. It details key events, dates, and even the complex political relationships between Copan and other Maya city-states. It is a treasure trove of information that has been absolutely essential for archaeologists and historians to piece together the story of this powerful kingdom. The stairway wasn't just a historical record. It was a powerful piece of political propaganda. It was constructed under the reign of Smoke Shell, following a devastating military defeat that Copan had suffered decades earlier. The previous king, the great Yaxcuc Up-o-Akewil, often called 18 Radat, was captured and sacrificed by the rival city of Quirigua. This was a catastrophic blow to Copan's prestige and power. The Hieroglyphic Stairway was a bold statement, a way for Smoke Shell to reassert Copan as authority and legitimize his own rule. by linking himself directly back to the city's glorious founder and all the great kings in between. He was essentially saying, "Our dynasty is strong, our history is profound, and our power is restored." The symbolism of the stairway is incredibly potent. As you ascend the steps, you are metaphorically walking up through the annals of Copan's history. You begin at the foundation of the dynasty and move forward in time with each step you take, culminating at the temple at the summit. This act of ascending history was a deeply meaningful experience for the ancient Maya. It reinforced the continuity of the royal line and the divine right of the current king to rule. It was a physical and spiritual journey through the legacy of the city's ancestors, a way to connect the present with the sacred past. The stairway served as a constant reminder to the people of Copan of their shared heritage and the enduring power of their kings. Now, here's where the story gets a bit complicated and turns into one of the greatest archaeological puzzles of all time. When archaeologists rediscovered the stairway, they found it in a state of collapse. Over the centuries, the blocks had tumbled down the pyramid, mixing them all up like a giant jigsaw puzzle. The early excavators, working without the knowledge of Maya script that we have today, painstakingly put the stairway back together. The problem is, they reassembled most of the blocks out of their original order. They did their best, but they didn't have the key to unlock the language. This means that while the stairway is visually stunning, the narrative is jumbled. Imagine trying to read a history book where all the pages have been torn out and shuffled randomly. That's the challenge that epigraphers, the experts who decipher ancient writing, face today. They have been working for decades to digitally reconstruct the stairway's original text, using their deep understanding of Maya grammar and historical records from other monuments. It's a slow and meticulous process, like cracking an ancient code. But with each block they virtually place back in its correct position, the story of Copan becomes clearer and more complete. Despite this puzzle, the stairway has given us invaluable insights. Flanking the steps are magnificent statues of seated figures, believed to represent some of the most important rulers and ancestors in Copan's history. These figures act as guardians of the sacred text, their stoic gazes watching over the city's legacy. The central axis of the stairway features iconography related to Maya cosmology, sacrifice, and divine kingship, further enriching its symbolic meaning. The entire structure is a complex tapestry of art, history, and religion. It wasn't just meant to be read. It was meant to be experienced, to instill a sense of awe and reverence for the kingdom and its divine rulers. The hieroglyphic stairway stands as a powerful symbol of human memory and our innate desire to record our own story. It shows that over 1,000 years ago, the Maya were just as concerned with their history and legacy as we are today. They used the most enduring medium they had, stone, to ensure that the saga of their kings would never be forgotten. And even though time and nature tried to scramble their work, the dedication of modern scholars is bringing that story back to life, one glyph at a time. It's a powerful reminder that history is not just a passive record of the past, but an active story that we are constantly rediscovering and retelling. The Hieroglyphic Stairway of Copan is more than just the world's longest ancient text. It's an ongoing conversation with the past, a puzzle that continues to reveal its secrets. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of one of the most fascinating structures in the ancient world. The story of the Hieroglyphic Stairway is a perfect example of how archaeology is a living science, always uncovering new truths. If you enjoyed this journey into the heart of the Maya Empire, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure. We have so many more stories to uncover together. Until next time, keep exploring. Welcome back to our journey through the wonders of ancient civilizations. Today, we're venturing deep into the heart of the Mayan world, to the magnificent city of Copan in Honduras. In this chapter, we'll uncover the secrets of the astronomers of the valley, the brilliant minds who gazed at the heavens and decoded its mysteries. Imagine standing in the great plaza of Copan, surrounded by towering, intricately carved stone monuments called stelae. These aren't just statues of kings. They are cosmic clocks, calendars etched in stone by an elite class of astronomers and priests. These individuals were the intellectual giants of their time, holding immense power and prestige. Their role was not just to observe the stars, but to interpret the will of the gods and guide the destiny of their people. They were the keepers of time, the masters of prophecy, and the architects of the sacred landscape. So who were these skywatchers? They were a specialized group, likely born into noble families and trained from a young age in mathematics, writing, and observational astronomy. Their knowledge was a closely guarded secret, passed down through generations. The inscriptions on Copan's monuments, like the famous Hieroglyphic Stairway, give us glimpses into their world. They mention titles like Archaean, which means he of the sun, or priest. These weren't just titles. They were job descriptions for men who spent their nights charting the celestial dance. They lived and worked in special observatory buildings, structures designed with specific windows and doorways to align perfectly with rising and setting celestial bodies. Think of them as the NASA scientists of the ancient Mayan world, using naked eye observation and simple tools like cross sticks to achieve incredible accuracy. Their primary obsession? Time. The Maya had not one, but multiple complex calendar systems running simultaneously. The most famous are the 260-day sacred calendar, known as the Tzolk'in, and the 365-day solar calendar, the Hab. The Tzolk'in was used for divination and scheduling religious ceremonies, while the Hab tracked the agricultural year. These two calendars interlocked like gears in a cosmic machine, creating a 52-year cycle. The end of this cycle was a time of great significance, marked by massive ceremonies and renewal, all orchestrated by the astronomer priests. But their understanding went even deeper. They also tracked the long count, a grand calendar that measured time from a mythical creation date, allowing them to record history and project far into the future. Maintaining the harmony between these calendars was a monumental task, requiring constant observation and precise calculation. One of the most impressive achievements of Copan's astronomers was their mastery of the Venus cycle. To the Maya, Venus was not just a bright point of light. It was Kykuk-Ulkan or Quetzalcoatl, a powerful and often fearsome deity associated with war and sacrifice. They knew that Venus's full cycle from one morning star appearance to the next is about 584 days. This might sound simple, but its path is complex. The astronomers of Copan tracked its appearances and disappearances with stunning precision. They knew when it would vanish into the sun's glare and when it would re-emerge as either the morning or evening star. These moments were astrologically potent. Inscriptions tell us that Maya rulers, advised by their astronomers, would often launch wars or conduct important rituals to coincide with these Venus events, believing it would grant them divine favor. The Dresden Codex, one of the few surviving Mayan books, contains detailed tables that are essentially an almanac for predicting the position of Venus for hundreds of years. The accuracy of these tables is astounding, off by only a few hours over 5 centuries. This shows a level of sustained, systematic observation that is truly mind-boggling for a civilization without telescopes. Beyond Venus, the sun was the central pillar of their cosmology. The astronomers precisely tracked the solstices and equinoxes, the longest and shortest days of the year, and the days of equal light and dark. These weren't just agricultural markers for planting and harvesting. They were sacred turning points in the cosmic cycle. And this is where the genius of Copan city planning comes into play. The city itself is an observatory. The stelae, those magnificent stone portraits of rulers, were not placed randomly. They were strategically positioned to create sightlines that marked key solar events. For example, in Copan, there are 2 stelae placed on hillsides on opposite sides of the valley. From one stela, on April 12th, you can watch the sun set directly behind the other. This date was no accident. It marked the beginning of the planting season for maize, the lifeblood of the Maya. This alignment, repeated again in September, turned the entire valley into a giant solar calendar, a sacred landscape where architecture and astronomy merged. Imagine the king and his priests standing at the viewing point, announcing to the people that the gods had given the signal to plant. It was a powerful demonstration of their connection to the cosmos and a reinforcement of their authority. Other buildings show similar alignments. The ball court at Copan, for example, is aligned to the rising and setting sun on the equinoxes. The games played there were not just sport. They were ritual reenactments of cosmic battles, with the movement of the ball mimicking the movement of the sun, moon, and stars. The doorways and windows of temples were often designed as solar observatories, framing the sunrise or sunset on specific important dates. Every part of the city was imbued with astronomical meaning, making daily life a constant interaction with the heavens. The city was a living, breathing expression of their cosmology, a mirror of the order they saw in the night sky. The astronomers of Copan also paid close attention to the moon and eclipses. Lunar eclipses, in particular, were seen as terrifying omens, often interpreted as the moon being attacked or devoured by a celestial monster. Being able to predict these events gave the priests immense power. Imagine the scene. The priest announces that the moon will be partially eaten on a certain night. When it happens exactly as foretold, the population's belief in the priest's divine connection would be unshakable. This predictive ability allowed them to manage public fear, perform the correct rituals to save the celestial body, and reaffirm their role as intermediaries between the earthly and divine realms. Their records, like the eclipse tables in the Dresden Codex, show they understood the pattern that eclipses occur in groups at intervals of about 6 months. This knowledge was a powerful tool of social and political control. In essence, the work of Copan's astronomers was the bedrock of their society. It dictated agriculture, warfare, religion, and politics. The sky was not a distant, abstract realm. It was an active participant in their daily lives. The movements of the stars were a sacred text, and the astronomer priests were its interpreters. Through their careful observations and sophisticated mathematics, they created a world of profound order and meaning, where the actions of humans were intricately woven into the grand tapestry of the cosmos. The stones of Copan are not silent. They speak of this incredible intellectual legacy, a testament to a people who looked to the stars and found their place in the universe. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of the astronomers of the valley. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Mayan cosmology, please hit that like button. And be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next chapter. We have so much more to uncover together. See you next time. Welcome back to our journey through the annals of history. Today, we're stepping away from the grand temples and royal tombs to explore something far more intimate, yet equally profound: the everyday life of the people who called the ancient Maya city of Copan home. Forget the god kings and high priests for a moment. Let's listen for the soft heartbeat of a living city, the hum of daily existence that truly gave Copan its soul. For every magnificent stela raised, for every pyramid that reached for the heavens, there were thousands of ordinary people whose lives, loves, and labor made it all possible. Imagine waking up not to the sound of an alarm clock, but to the calls of tropical birds and the gentle stirring of your neighbors. In the residential areas surrounding the main acropolis, families lived in compounds made of adobe and thatch. These weren't isolated houses like we have today, but clusters of homes centered around a shared patio. This layout speaks volumes about their culture. It was communal, interconnected. Aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents, they were all part of the daily tapestry of life. The day would begin early, with the smell of wood smoke in the air, as women prepared the morning meal. Corn, or maize was the absolute staff of life. They would grind the corn on a stone matare mix it with water, and lime to make dough, and then pat it into tortillas, cooking them on a hot ceramic griddle called comal. This sound, the rhythmic pat-pat of tortilla making, was the morning pulse of the city. With breakfast finished, the city would come alive with activity. Men would head out to the fields in the fertile Copán Valley. They were brilliant farmers who understood their environment. They practiced a sophisticated form of agriculture, using terracing on the hillsides to prevent erosion and maximize their growing space. Their primary crops were the three sisters: maize, beans, and squash. These three plants have a symbiotic relationship, enriching the soil and providing a complete protein when eaten together. But they also grew chili peppers, avocados, papayas, and cacao, the sacred bean from which they made a frothy, often bitter chocolate drink reserved for the elite and special ceremonies. Farming was hard work, done with simple tools like digging sticks and stone axes, but it was the foundation of their entire civilization. Back in the city's workshops, another kind of magic was happening. Copan was a hub of skilled artisans. Potters, their hands covered in clay, sat at their wheels, or rather, they didn't, as the Maya didn't use the potter's wheel. They built their vessels with a coiling technique, painstakingly smoothing the sides and then painting them with intricate designs. These weren't just simple bowls and jars. They were works of art, depicting scenes from mythology, historical events, or daily life. You can imagine a master potter teaching an apprentice, passing down knowledge through generations, their legacy preserved in every shard of pottery we find today. Then there were the weavers. Weaving was primarily a woman's art, and it was highly valued. Using backstrap looms, they would create stunning textiles from cotton, which they grew and spun into thread. They used natural dyes from plants and insects to create a vibrant palette of colors. A woman's skill in weaving was a source of pride and a significant contribution to the household economy. The patterns they wove were not just decorative. They were a form of language, rich with symbolism, telling stories of their beliefs and their place in the cosmos. The intricate clothing you see depicted on the stelae of kings and queens was born from the patient, skilled hands of these women. The marketplace would have been the vibrant social and economic center of the city. Picture a bustling plaza, filled with the chatter of people and the smells of fresh produce and cooking food. Traders, or *PLMs*, would arrive from far and wide, their backs laden with goods. From the highlands came obsidian, a volcanic glass sharper than a modern surgical scalpel, used for tools and weapons. From the Caribbean coast came salt, shells, and exotic feathers from birds like the quetzal, whose iridescent tail feathers were worth more than gold. Cacao beans often served as a form of currency. This was a place of exchange, not just of goods, but of news and ideas. It was where you'd catch up on gossip, arrange a marriage, or hear about the latest royal decree. It was the internet of its day, a living network connecting Copan to the wider Maya world. As the sun began to set, people would return to their homes. The evening meal would be another chance for the family to gather. But life wasn't all work. The Maya had a rich cultural life filled with music, dance, and games. Archaeologists have found evidence of flutes, drums, and rattles. Music was integral to their rituals and ceremonies, but it's easy to imagine it also being a part of their daily lives. Perhaps a father playing a simple bone flute for his children as the stars came out. They also played the famous Mesoamerican ballgame. While the version played in the great ball court of Copan was a high-stakes ritual affair, smaller, more informal games were likely played in neighborhoods for sport and fun. It was a game of incredible skill, where players would try to hit a solid rubber ball through a stone hoop using only their hips, knees, and elbows. Imagine the excitement, the cheers of the crowd, the friendly rivalry between neighborhoods. And then there was family life. We see it reflected in their art and burials. They cared for their children, they honored their elders. When someone died, they were often buried right under the floor of the house. This might seem strange to us, but for the Maya, it meant that their ancestors were never truly gone. They remained part of the household, their spirits watching over the family. Rituals and offerings would be made to these ancestors, maintaining a constant connection between the living and the dead, the past and the present. Life was a cycle, and every member of the family had a place within it. Of course, life wasn't always idyllic. They faced challenges like disease, drought, and the occasional political turmoil. Infant mortality was high, and life expectancy was much shorter than ours. But what we see in the archaeological record is not a story of misery, but one of resilience, ingenuity, and a deep connection to their community and their world. The story of Copan isn't just the story of its kings. It's the story of the farmer tending his maize, the potter shaping her clay, the weaver creating her patterns, the trader carrying his wares, and the children playing in the courtyard. It's the story of a community, a symphony of countless individual lives that together created one of the great civilizations of the ancient world. When we walk through the ruins today, it's these echoes of everyday life that are often the most powerful. You can almost hear the murmur of the market, the laughter of a family, the rhythmic sound of corn being ground. It's a reminder that behind every stone monument and every cryptic glyph, there were people just like us, living out their lives with hope, struggle, and love. The true wonder of Copan lies not just in its fallen temples, but in the enduring spirit of its people. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into the heart of a lost city. If you enjoyed this journey, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our next adventure into the past. See you next time. Welcome back to our series on the ancient Maya. Today, we read Journeying to the magnificent city of Copan to explore a period of profound change, its gradual decline. We've seen Copan at its zenith, a bustling metropolis of art, science, and power. But what happens when the foundations of such a great city begin to crack? Let's dive into Chapter 17, the decline of Copan's greatness. By the late 8th century, the Copán Valley, which had sustained a large population for centuries, was showing signs of serious strain. Imagine a city that had grown and grown, its people clearing more and more of the surrounding hillsides to plant their crops, especially maize. This expansion had a cost. Deforestation on the steep slopes led to severe soil erosion. The rich topsoil, the lifeblood of their agriculture, was washing away with every heavy rain flowing down into the valley floor. This created a vicious cycle. Less fertile land meant lower crop yields. Lower yields meant it was harder to feed the burgeoning population. Archaeologists have found evidence of this environmental stress in the skeletal remains from this period. Many individuals show signs of malnutrition and disease, indicating that life was becoming increasingly difficult for the common people of Copan. This wasn't a sudden catastrophe, but a slow creeping crisis that weakened the city from within. The very environment that had allowed Copan to flourish was now struggling to support it. On top of these environmental woes, the political landscape of Copan was becoming increasingly unstable. Remember the glorious reign of rulers like 18 Rabbit, who adorned the city with spectacular monuments? That era of supreme confidence was fading. The later rulers of Copan were facing a crisis of authority. It's one thing to rule during a time of plenty, but it's another challenge entirely to lead when resources are scarce and people are struggling. How do we know this? One of the most telling clues is the art and architecture itself. The Maya elite, especially the king or Kewal Ajol, legitimized their power through grand public rituals and the construction of impressive monuments. These stelae and altars weren't just art. They were political statements, records of royal achievements, and connections to the divine. They told the people that the king was in control, that he had the favor of the gods, and that he could ensure the prosperity of the kingdom. But as we move into the final decades of Copan's dynastic history, we see a dramatic slowdown in this monumental construction. The pace of carving new stelae and altars, which had been so prolific in earlier centuries, decelerates significantly. This isn't just a change in artistic fashion. It's a powerful indicator of economic and political trouble. Carving these massive stone monuments required immense resources, skilled artisans, laborers to quarry and move the stone, and a surplus of food to support them. A decline in monument carving suggests that the rulers could no longer command these resources as they once had. Their wealth and their power base were eroding. Think about the last major rulers of Copan. Their inscriptions and portraits often seem less grandiose, perhaps even showing a sense of anxiety. They were trying to hold together a system that was under immense pressure. One of the last known rulers, Ukit Tuk, or Flint Shield, ascended the throne around the year 822 AD. His legacy is telling. Instead of a magnificent, towering stela, his reign is commemorated by Altar L, a monument that was left unfinished. The carving on Altar L is rough, incomplete. It depicts Ukit Tuk facing a predecessor, as if seeking to legitimize his rule by connecting to the great kings of the past. But the work was never completed. The sculptors just stopped. Why? We can only speculate. Perhaps the resources ran out completely. Perhaps there was a political upheaval. Or perhaps the very institution of divine kingship had lost its meaning for the people. An unfinished royal monument is a powerful symbol of a dynasty in its final, faltering moments. It's like a promise of continuity that could not be kept. This combination of factors, environmental degradation, population pressure, and the weakening of political authority, created a perfect storm. The intricate social contract between the rulers and the ruled began to break down. The kings were supposed to guarantee agricultural fertility and prosperity through their rituals. But when the fields were failing and people were hungry, their faith in the king's power would have been severely tested. This wasn't a single event, like a great battle or a natural disaster that wiped the city out overnight. It was a process of gradual disintegration. The central authority of the king weakened, and the complex society that revolved around the royal court began to unravel. People likely started to abandon the city center, moving away to find more fertile land or simply to escape the failing political system. The population of the Copán Valley didn't vanish, but the great city, the political and religious heart of the region, ceased to function as it once had. The silence that follows is profound. After Altar L, the tradition of raising dated monuments at Copan, a practice that had endured for 400 years, comes to an end. The royal scribes laid down their tools. The great plazas, once thronged with people for magnificent ceremonies, grew quiet. The palaces of the elite were eventually abandoned, their roofs collapsing, their walls slowly reclaimed by the jungle. The story of Copan's decline is a sobering but important lesson from history. It shows how even the most brilliant and enduring civilizations are not immune to the pressures of environmental change and political stress. It reminds us that the foundations of any society, ancient or modern, are a delicate balance of resources, leadership, and the trust of its people. The greatness of Copan didn't disappear in a flash of fire, but faded slowly, leaving behind the haunting beauty of its silent stones. Join us next time as we continue to explore the fascinating world of the ancient Maya. We'll look at how other cities in the Maya world were faring during this same turbulent period. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into history. See you in the next chapter. Welcome back to our journey through time. Today, we arrive at a chapter filled with mystery and melancholy, the Great Abandonment. Imagine a bustling metropolis, a beacon of civilization, suddenly falling silent. This isn't a fantasy tale. It's the real story of what happened to the great Maya cities of the southern lowlands. By the late 800s, a profound change swept across the region. Cities that had thrived for centuries, centers of power, art, and science, began to empty out. Think of Tikal, Calakmul, or Palenque. These were once home to tens of thousands of people. Their plazas echoed with the sounds of daily life, ceremonies, and royal pronouncements. But as the 9th century drew to a close, those sounds faded. The markets grew quiet, the grand temples were left unattended, and the houses fell empty. People simply left. It wasn't a single catastrophic event, but a gradual exodus that spanned decades. The question that has puzzled historians and archaeologists for centuries is, why? There wasn't one single reason, but a perfect storm of crises. Imagine a society already stretched to its limits. Decades, perhaps even centuries, of intense warfare between rival city-states had exhausted resources and manpower. Kings who once commanded immense loyalty and were seen as divine conduits to the gods began to lose their grip. Their promises of reign and prosperity went unfulfilled. And this brings us to another critical factor: climate change. Tree ring and sediment core data tell us a story of severe, prolonged droughts that hit the region right around this time. For a civilization built on agriculture, particularly the cultivation of maize, this was devastating. The rains failed, the crops withered, and the reservoirs dried up. Starvation and disease would have followed, creating widespread social unrest. When the divine kings could no longer make it rain, the people's faith in the entire system collapsed. The political structure, so rigid and hierarchical, couldn't adapt. The constant demand for resources to build monuments and wage wars had already led to massive deforestation and soil erosion, making the land even more vulnerable to drought. So, you have a combination of political instability, incessant warfare, environmental degradation, and catastrophic climate change. It was a domino effect. One crisis compounded another until the entire societal structure crumbled. The people didn't vanish into thin air, they migrated. They moved away from the collapsing southern cities, likely heading north to areas like the Yucatan Peninsula, where cities like Chichen Itza and Uxmal were beginning to rise in prominence. Others may have dispersed into smaller, more sustainable villages, returning to a simpler way of life, far from the demands of kings and priests. They abandoned the monumental stone centers that had defined their civilization for a millennium. And as the last inhabitants departed, a new power began to take over: nature. Slowly, silently, but relentlessly, the forest returned. The process was gradual. At first, grasses and weeds would have pushed through the cracks in the great plazas. Then small shrubs would take root. But soon, the mighty ceiba trees and strangler figs began their assault. Their roots, like powerful fingers, pried apart the massive stone blocks of temples and palaces. Vines, thick as a man's arm, draped themselves over pyramids, creating green waterfalls of foliage. A thick blanket of moss covered carvings and stairways, softening their sharp edges and obscuring the intricate details of a lost world. The once vibrant colors of the painted stucco faded and flaked away, replaced by the endless shades of green, brown, and gray of the jungle. The air, once filled with the clamor of a city, was now filled with the sounds of the rainforest. The call of howler monkeys, the chatter of birds, the constant hum of insects. Silence, deep and profound, settled over the ruins. The forest wrapped the cities in a green embrace, hiding them from the outside world for 1,000 years. It was a process of reclamation, of the wild taking back what was once its own. To walk through these ruins today is to witness the end of that long, silent battle between human creation and natural forces. You can see trees growing directly out of the tops of temples, their roots cascading down the stone faces. It's a humbling sight, a powerful reminder of the impermanence of even the mightiest empires. Yet, amidst this overwhelming return of the forest, some things endured. The stelae, those magnificent carved stone pillars, remained. Many of them still stand today, exactly where the Maya left them over 1,000 years ago. They stand like silent storytellers, their surfaces weathered by centuries of sun and rain, their hieroglyphs eroded but still visible. These stelae are our most direct link to the people who lived here. They depict powerful rulers in their full regalia, record their lineages, celebrate their victories in battle, and mark important celestial events. They are stone-carved histories, frozen moments in time. Standing before a stela in the quiet of the jungle, you can't help but feel a connection to the past. You can almost hear the faint echo of the artisan's chisel, the murmur of the priest reading the inscriptions. These stone monuments are guardians of memory. They survived the collapse of their civilization and the centuries of neglect. They watched as the forest grew up around them, concealing them from view. They stood as silent witnesses to the changing world. When explorers in the 19th century began to hack their way through the jungle and rediscover these lost cities, it was often the stelae that they stumbled upon first, towering sentinels hinting at the grandeur hidden beneath the vegetation. Each glyph, each portrait is a piece of the puzzle. They tell us the names of kings like Jasa Chen Keawil of Tikal or Kayanich Janab Pekal of Palenque. They allow us to reconstruct timelines and understand the political landscape of their time. Without these silent storytellers, the history of the classic Maya would be far more obscure. They are a testament to the Maya desire to be remembered, to carve their story into a medium that could withstand the ravages of time. And so the story of Chapter 18 is not just one of loss and decay, it is also a story of resilience and rediscovery. The abandonment of the cities marked the end of an era, but the Maya people and their culture endured, adapting and evolving in new locations. And the forest, while it consumed the physical structures, also protected them. It created a time capsule, preserving the ruins until a time when we could find them and begin to piece together their incredible story. The stelae, standing tall through it all, were waiting to share their secrets. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of the Great Maya Collapse. It's a powerful lesson in the delicate balance between civilization and the environment. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell because our journey is far from over. Next time, we'll venture into the northern Yucatan to see how Maya civilization was reborn from the ashes of the south. See you then. Imagine a world hidden for centuries, a civilization lost to time, swallowed by the relentless jungle. For hundreds of years, the magnificent cities of the Maya lay dormant, their stone temples and intricate carvings known only to local communities and the encroaching wilderness. This all changed in the 19th century, thanks to the daring and curiosity of a few remarkable individuals. Welcome back to our series on the Maya. Today we're diving into Chapter 19, The Great Rediscovery. For centuries after the Spanish conquest, the Maya world was largely a mystery to outsiders. Sure, there were fragmented accounts from Spanish priests and colonial officials, but the true scale and splendor of the ancient Maya were forgotten. The great cities of Tikal, Palenque, and Copan became little more than legends whispered among local populations, their pyramids and palaces consumed by a sea of green. It was a classic case of a lost world, waiting for its moment to be unveiled once again. The stage was set for a dramatic rediscovery, and the main characters in this real-life adventure story were an unlikely pair: John Lloyd Stephens, an American lawyer, writer, and diplomat, and Frederick Catherwood, a British architect and artist. Stephens was a natural-born adventurer with a gift for storytelling. He had already traveled through Europe and the Middle East, writing popular travel books that captured the public's imagination. Catherwood, on the other hand, was a meticulous artist with an incredible eye for detail, famous for his precise architectural drawings of ancient ruins in Egypt and the Holy Land. In 1839, their paths crossed and history was made. Stephens had been appointed as a special ambassador to Central America by the U.S. president, but he had a second, more personal mission: to investigate rumors of ancient, ruined cities hidden deep within the jungles. He invited Catherwood to join him, and together, they embarked on an expedition that would forever change our understanding of the Americas. Their journey was anything but easy. They battled treacherous terrain, torrential rains, dense jungle, and swarms of insects. They navigated political turmoil and local suspicions. But what they found was beyond their wildest dreams. Their first major stop was the site of Copan in modern-day Honduras. Hacking their way through the thick vegetation with machetes, they suddenly came face to face with a carved stone stela. Stevens later wrote about this moment with pure astonishment, describing it as a work of art that rose from the earth. Rich in ornament, curious in design, unlike anything he had ever seen before, as they cleared more of the jungle, a whole city emerged. They found plazas, pyramids, and altars covered in hieroglyphic writing that no one could read. Stevens, with his loyal mind, even managed to purchase the entire city of Copan for the grand sum of $50, though the deal was never quite official. What made their expedition so groundbreaking was Catherwood's incredible artistic talent. Previous accounts of Maya ruins were often romanticized or inaccurate. But Catherwood was a master of precision. He used a device called a camera lucida, which allowed him to trace the exact outlines of the structures and carvings onto paper. His drawings were so detailed and accurate that they captured the complexity of Maya art and architecture with scientific precision. For the first time, the world could see the Maya civilization not as a primitive relic, but as the creation of a sophisticated and artistic people. From Copan, they pushed onward. Their next major discovery was Palenque in Mexico. Hidden on a jungle-covered hillside, Palenque was even more breathtaking. They explored the magnificent palace with its iconic four-story tower and the Temple of the Inscriptions, which held secrets that wouldn't be unlocked for another 100 years. Catherwood, despite suffering from malaria, worked tirelessly, sometimes perched precariously on rickety ladders in the sweltering heat, to capture every detail of the city's delicate stucco reliefs and intricate carvings. Their final great expedition took them to the Yucatan Peninsula, where they documented dozens of sites including the awe-inspiring ruins of Uxmal and Chichen Itza. At Uxmal, they marveled at the Pyramid of the Magician and the ornate governor's palace, which Catherwood considered one of the most magnificent buildings he had ever seen, rivaling the temples of ancient Greece and Rome. In 1841, Stevens published their findings in a book titled Incidents of Travel in Central America, Chiapas and Yucatan. It was an instant bestseller. Illustrated with Catherwood's stunning engravings, the book captivated readers in America and Europe. Stevens's lively narrative brought their adventures to life, while Catherwood's images provided undeniable proof of a lost civilization of immense grandeur. For the first time, the general public was introduced to the world of the Maya. Before Stevens and Catherwood, the prevailing theory was that these magnificent structures must have been built by Egyptians, Israelites, or some other old world civilization. The idea that indigenous peoples of the Americas could have created such a complex society was simply dismissed by many. But Stevens argued powerfully against this notion. He looked at the faces carved in stone and declared, "These cities were not built by any people that have ever been known, but are the work of the same races who inhabited the country at the time of the Spanish conquest." He was right. He gave the credit for this incredible civilization back to the Maya people themselves. Their work had a profound impact. It shattered old prejudices and ignited a worldwide fascination with the Maya. It effectively launched the modern field of Maya studies. Archaeologists, linguists, and adventurers were inspired to follow in their footsteps, flocking to Central America to uncover more secrets. The mysterious hieroglyphs that Catherwood had so carefully copied became the great puzzle for scholars to solve, a puzzle that would take more than a century to decipher. The legacy of Stevens and Catherwood is immeasurable. They were not the first non-natives to see these ruins, but they were the first to truly reveal them to the world in a way that was both scientific and deeply compelling. They were pioneers who combined adventure with scholarship, art with archaeology. They pulled back the jungle curtain and showed the world the forgotten genius of the Maya. Their journey was more than just a trip through the jungle. It was a journey back in time, opening a door to a past that had been sealed shut for centuries. And it's a story that continues to inspire us to this day, reminding us that there are always new worlds to discover, if only we have the courage to look. Thanks for joining us for this chapter. The story of the Maya is full of twists and turns, and we're just getting started. If you enjoyed this, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next episode. where we all start to unravel the mysteries of the Maya calendar and their complex understanding of time. See you then. Welcome back to our journey through history. Today, we're diving into Chapter 20, exploring the fascinating world of modern archaeology and the critical mission of preservation. Imagine being the first person in centuries to gaze upon the treasures of a forgotten king, or to decipher inscriptions that rewrite history. This isn't a movie plot. It's the reality for archaeologists working today. Recent decades have seen some of the most spectacular discoveries ever made. Think of sprawling royal tomb complexes, unearthed with their intricate passageways and chambers still filled with artifacts meant to accompany a ruler into the afterlife. These aren't just piles of gold, they're time capsules. Each object, from a ceremonial vessel to a humble piece of pottery, tells a story about the society that created it, their beliefs, their artistry, and their daily lives. And it's not just tombs. Archaeologists are uncovering monumental structures that once dominated ancient cityscapes. Giant statues, towering obelisks, and expansive temple complexes are being brought back into the light. The sheer scale of these projects is mind-boggling. Modern techniques like ground-penetrating radar and satellite imagery allow teams to map vast underground sites before a single shovel even breaks ground. This lets them excavate with surgical precision, minimizing damage and maximizing the information they can recover. One of the most thrilling parts of these excavations is the discovery of new inscriptions. Carved into stone walls, stelae, or even tiny clay tablets, these texts are direct messages from the past. Sometimes they're royal decrees, boasting of military victories and grand construction projects. Other times, they're administrative records, detailing the trade of goods and the management of a kingdom. And occasionally, they're personal letters or poems, offering a deeply human glimpse into the lives of people who lived thousands of years ago. Each new glyph, each deciphered word, adds another piece to the giant puzzle of human history, often challenging what we thought we knew. But uncovering these wonders is only half the battle. The moment these ancient sites are exposed to the modern world, they face a new set of enemies. The very air we breathe can become a threat. For centuries, these tombs and monuments were protected, sealed away in a stable underground environment. Now they're at the mercy of the elements. Let's talk about the biggest challenges. First up is erosion. Wind and rain might seem harmless, but over years and decades, they can be incredibly destructive. The wind can act like a sandblaster, slowly wearing away the delicate surfaces of carved stone, blurring inscriptions and smoothing intricate details into oblivion. Rain, especially acid rain in polluted areas, can chemically dissolve materials like limestone and marble, literally melting history away. You can see this happening at sites around the world, where majestic statues now have featureless faces, their expressions lost forever. Then there are floods. A single catastrophic flood can do more damage in a day than centuries of slow erosion. Water can inundate entire sites, weakening foundations and causing structures to collapse. It seeps into porous stone, carrying salts and minerals that crystallize as the water evaporates. This process, called efflorescence, can literally push the surface of the stone off, causing it to flake and crumble. We've seen ancient tombs, once perfectly preserved, become waterlogged messes, with painted murals peeling off the walls and delicate artifacts turning to mud. And we can't forget about the living threats. Biological growth is a huge problem. Algae, lichens, and mosses love to make their homes on ancient stone. While they might look picturesque, their roots and filaments penetrate the surface, prying it apart on a microscopic level. They also trap moisture against the stone, accelerating water damage. And their metabolic processes can create acids that further eat away at the material. Removing this growth is a delicate process. Scrub too hard, and you damage the artifact itself. Even something as small as a seed can be a major problem. A tiny seed can fall into a crack in a monument, and as it sprouts and grows into a plant or even a tree, its roots can exert incredible force, splitting massive stone blocks apart from the inside. It's a slow-motion demolition, driven by nature itself. Beyond plants, insects and burrowing animals can also wreak havoc, destabilizing structures and destroying organic artifacts. So with all these threats, what can be done? This is where the science of conservation comes in. It's a field that blends chemistry, engineering, art history, and good old-fashioned detective work to protect our shared heritage. The goal isn't to make things look brand new, but to stabilize them and prevent further decay preserving their authenticity for future generations. Let's look at how conservators fight back. To combat erosion and water damage, they might apply consolidants. These are special liquid chemicals that are absorbed into the porous stone and then harden, binding the fragile particles together and making the surface more resistant to weathering. It's like giving the stone a new internal skeleton. For protection against rain, they might use hydrophobic coatings, which are like invisible raincoats for monuments, causing water to bead up and roll off without soaking in. In areas prone to flooding, massive engineering projects are sometimes necessary. This can involve building dams, diversion channels, or sophisticated underground drainage systems to keep water away from vulnerable sites. In some extreme cases, like the Abu Simbel temples in Egypt, entire monuments have been painstakingly disassembled, moved to higher ground, and then reassembled, piece by piece. An incredible feat of engineering to save an irreplaceable treasure. When it comes to biological growth, conservators use a range of biocides to gently kill off the algae and lichen without harming the stone underneath. This is often followed by a careful, painstaking cleaning process, using everything from soft brushes and controlled water jets to highly advanced laser systems. Lasers can be tuned to a specific frequency that vaporizes the grime and biological growth while leaving the original stone surface completely untouched. It's like a sci-fi ray gun for cleaning history. One of the most crucial parts of modern conservation is protecting the glyphs and inscriptions we talked about earlier. These texts are often the most fragile parts of a monument. For these, non-invasive documentation is key. Techniques like 3D scanning and high-resolution photogrammetry create incredibly detailed digital models of the inscriptions. This means that even if the original stone were to degrade further, we would have a perfect digital record of the text. This data can be studied by scholars all over the world without ever needing to touch the fragile original. These digital models also allow for virtual restoration. Experts can digitally fill in the missing pieces of a broken inscription or enhance faint carvings to make them more readable, all without physically altering the artifact. This helps us understand the texts better while respecting the object's current, authentic state. The work of modern archaeology and conservation is a race against time. Every discovery is a victory, but it also marks the beginning of a new responsibility to protect it. It requires international cooperation, cutting-edge technology, and a deep, passionate commitment from the people on the ground. They are the guardians of our collective memory, working tirelessly to ensure that the stories written in stone are not erased by the winds of time. Thanks to their efforts, the voices of the past can continue to speak to us, and to all the generations that will come after. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration. If you found this fascinating, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next deep dive into history. See you next time. Hello and welcome back. Today, we re-venturing deep into the heart of the ancient Maya world as we explore. Chapter Archaeology, what Copan? Glyphs teach us today. If you've ever wondered how a civilization without paper books could record its entire history, you're about to find out. The answer is literally set in stone. Imagine walking through the ruins of Copan, a magnificent city nestled in the lush valleys of what is now Honduras. All around you are towering stelae and grand staircases, every inch covered in intricate carvings. These aren't just decorations. They are glyphs, a sophisticated writing system that holds the memory of a lost kingdom. For centuries, these stones stood silent, their stories a mystery. But thanks to the incredible work of epigraphers, these glyphs are now speaking to us, revealing the secrets of Copan's golden age. Let's start with the most famous structure, the Hieroglyphic Stairway. This is the longest known text of the ancient Maya, with over 2,000 individual glyphs. It's like a massive historical document, narrating the reigns of Copan's kings one step at a time. Each glyph is a piece of the puzzle, telling us about royal ascensions, political marriages, and dynastic succession. The stairway chronicles the history of a powerful lineage, from the founder, Kayanich Yaxkuk Mo, all the way to the city's 16th ruler. It's a stone-carved family tree and a political record, all in one. These glyphs show us that Maya rulers used history as a powerful tool to legitimize their power, connecting their reign to the divine actions of their ancestors. But the glyphs tell us more than just who was king. They give us an unprecedented look into the inner workings of Maya society. We learn about the complex political landscape of the classic period. The inscriptions reveal alliances, rivalries, and even warfare between city-states. For example, we read about a devastating defeat Copan suffered at the hands of its rival, Quirigua. The glyphs describe the capture and sacrifice of Copan's greatest king, Waxaclajun Aboa Keowel, or 18 Rabbit. This single event, recorded forever in stone, marked a turning point in the city's history, a period of decline and political upheaval. It's a stark reminder that even the most powerful kingdoms could fall. Beyond politics and war, the glyphs of Copan open a window into the Maya spiritual world. The inscriptions are filled with references to gods, religious rituals, and sacred ceremonies. We learn about the Maya belief in a cyclical universe, where creation and destruction were constantly in motion. The kings were not just political leaders. They were divine intermediaries, responsible for performing rituals that maintained cosmic order. They would commune with gods and ancestors through bloodletting ceremonies and other sacred acts, all meticulously documented in the glyphs. The art that accompanies these texts, with its vivid depictions of supernatural beings and royal pageantry, brings this rich religious tapestry to life. The Maya were also brilliant astronomers, and the glyphs at Copan are a testament to their celestial knowledge. They developed one of the most accurate calendars in the ancient world, tracking the movements of the sun, moon, Venus, and the stars with incredible precision. The glyphs record important astronomical events, like eclipses and planetary alignments, which were seen as divine omens. This knowledge wasn't just for predicting the future. It was practical. It determined the timing for planting and harvesting crops, for waging war, and for conducting important religious festivals. The calendar was the backbone of Maya life, and the glyphs were the key to understanding its complex cycles. And of course, we can't talk about the glyphs without mentioning the art. The scribes and sculptors of Copan were masters of their craft. The glyphs themselves are miniature works of art, beautifully rendered with flowing lines and incredible detail. The style of Copan art is unique, known for its deep, three-dimensional carving and a naturalism that makes the figures seem almost alive. This wasn't just decoration. The art and writing were deeply intertwined. The images give context to the text, and the text explains the meaning of the images. Together, they create a rich, multi-layered narrative that is both beautiful and informative. So what is the ultimate lesson from Copan's talking stones? It's about the profound value of literacy. In a world without modern technology, the Maya developed a writing system that allowed them to preserve their history, knowledge, and culture for eternity. The ability to read and write was likely reserved for an elite class of scribes, priests, and nobles, giving them immense power. They were the keepers of memory, the interpreters of the cosmos, and the historians of kings. The glyphs are a powerful reminder that writing is one of humanity's greatest inventions, a tool that allows one generation to speak to the next across the vast expanse of time. The story of Copan, as told through its glyphs, is a story of ambition, power, faith, and genius. It shows us a civilization that was incredibly complex and sophisticated. But it's also a cautionary tale. Eventually, the city was abandoned, and the jungle reclaimed its temples and plazas. For 1,000 years, the glyphs waited patiently to be read again. Their decipherment in our own time is like discovering a library from a lost world, allowing the kings and people of Copan to finally break their silence. As we conclude our journey through Chapter 21, we are left with a sense of awe for the Maya people and their enduring legacy. The stones of Copan are more than just archaeological artifacts. They are a living history, a testament to the human drive to record our stories and make our mark on the world. They teach us that even when a civilization collapses, its voice can survive if it is written down. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of Copan's incredible glyphs. I hope it has given you a new appreciation for the depth and richness of ancient Maya culture. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more journeys into the past. Let me know in the comments what you found most fascinating about the glyphs of Copan. Until next time, keep exploring. And so we've come to the end of our journey together. Here we are at Chapter 22, our closing reflections on the Whispering Stones. Let this be a gentle summary, a soft and soothing companion as you drift off to sleep. I hope our time together has brought you a sense of peace, a quiet space for your mind to rest. We began our exploration with a simple idea, a question really. How can something as silent and still as a stone speak to us across the vast expanse of time? What stories are held within their ancient, weathered faces? Over these chapters, we've wandered through history, touching upon the lives of those who came before. We've imagined the hands that shaped these stones, the eyes that looked upon them, and the hearts that invested them with meaning. Think back to the carvings we discussed. Each line, each symbol, was a deliberate act of communication. It was a message sent out into the future, a hope that someone, someday, would understand. For 1,500 years, these stones have been patient storytellers, waiting for a listener. They've endured the changing of seasons, the rise and fall of kingdoms, the shifting of sands and soils. They have been silent witnesses to the endless cycle of life. And in their silence, they teach us a profound lesson. They teach us about permanence, about the enduring power of human expression. In a world that often feels fleeting and fast-paced, these stones are anchors. They remind us that our actions, our creations, our stories can echo far beyond our own lifetime. The artisans who carved them had no idea who we would be or what our world would look like, yet they reached out anyway. They believed in a future they would never see. We talked about the communities that gathered around these markers. They weren't just lumps of rock. They were focal points. They were places of remembrance, of celebration, of guidance. They marked sacred ground, they told of heroic deeds, they mapped the stars. They were the physical embodiment of a culture's knowledge, beliefs, and aspirations. Imagine the gatherings, the hushed voices sharing stories under the moonlight, with the stones standing sentinel, absorbing it all. These stones whisper of connection. They connect the past to the present, the earth to the sky, and people to one another. They remind us that we are part of a long, unbroken chain of humanity. The same fundamental questions they grappled with are the ones we still ask today. Who are we? Where do we come from? What is our purpose? The answers may change, but the seeking, the questioning, is eternal. As you settle in tonight, allow your mind to drift. Picture a single, ancient stone standing on a quiet hillside. Feel the cool, rough texture of its surface. See the lichens and moss that have made it their home, a tiny ecosystem thriving on a monument of the past. Hear the wind as it gently blows across the land, carrying with it the faint echoes of history. This stone has seen more sunrises and sunsets than we can possibly imagine. It holds the memory of 1,000 winters and the promise of 1,000 more springs. The whispers of the stones are not loud. They don't demand our attention. They are subtle, patient, and available only to those who choose to listen. Listening requires us to slow down, to be present, to quiet the noise of our own lives. It's in that stillness that we can begin to hear the stories they have to tell. They speak of resilience, of enduring through hardship. They speak of beauty found in the simple, natural forms of the earth. And they speak of legacy, of leaving something meaningful behind. We've journeyed far from the quarries where these stones were born to the final resting places where they now stand. We've delved into the symbolism, the artistry, and the human spirit that brought them to life. It's a testament to our innate desire to create, to communicate, to be remembered. 1,500 years is a long time. It can be hard to truly comprehend. But through these stones that time collapses. We can almost feel the presence of those who lived so long ago. We can feel their hopes, their fears, their love. They are not so different from us. They lived, they worked, they dreamed. They left behind these stone whispers as a gift to the future, a gift to us. And our part in this conversation is simply to listen, to appreciate, and to carry their stories forward. By learning about them, by thinking about them, we keep their memory alive. We become part of the story ourselves. So as your breathing deepens and your body finds rest, let these thoughts be a gentle current, carrying you toward peaceful dreams. Let the image of the whispering stones be a symbol of tranquility and timelessness. They have stood for centuries, and they will continue to stand long after we are gone. They are a comforting reminder of the vast, beautiful tapestry of existence that we are all a part of. Our journey through these chapters is now complete, but the stones continue to whisper. They will be there tomorrow, and the day after, and for generations to come, waiting for new listeners. Perhaps one day, you'll encounter such a stone on your own travels, and you'll pause, and you'll listen. And maybe, just maybe, you'll hear a story meant just for you. Thank you for joining me on this exploration. It has been a true honor to share this time with you. I hope these stories have brought you as much comfort and wonder as they have brought me. May your night be filled with peace, and may your dreams be sweet. This is a gentle farewell, for now. Thank you for listening, and sleep well.